The Tesla Model X glided into the circular driveway of the lakeside mansion when Michael Carter decided to cut his business trip short by 2 days. Something in his pregnant wife's voice during their last phone call had worried him. A tremor, a hesitation, something that didn't sit right with a man who had built a $10 billion software empire by reading between the lines. At 38 years old, the CEO of Carter Industries had just closed the biggest merger in his company's history during a week-long trip to Seattle. The deal would change everything. More money, more power, more influence. But as he turned off the engine and stared at the sprawling Austin estate, none of that mattered. The only thing that mattered was the 26-year-old woman inside who was 6 months pregnant with his first child. Emily Carter hadn't asked him to come home early. She never asked for anything. That's what worried him most. Michael grabbed his leather briefcase and walked toward the side entrance that led to the kitchen. He wanted to surprise Emily, maybe cook her favorite pasta dish the way he used to when they were dating, before the money, before the mansion, before his mother moved in 8 months ago. The sound stopped him cold. "I told you to stay in your room when you're having these episodes." His mother's voice cut through the afternoon air like a blade, sharp, clinical, cruel. Michael froze behind the granite pillar separating the hallway from the kitchen. "I'm not having an episode, Patricia." Emily's voice was small, broken. "I just wanted some water. The baby." "The baby. Always the baby." Patricia Carter's laugh made Michael's blood run cold. "You think carrying my son's child gives you special privileges in this house? You're nothing but a gold digger who got pregnant to trap him." Michael felt his briefcase slip from his numb fingers, landing silently on the imported Italian tile. "I love Michael," Emily whispered. "I would never—" "Love? Please. You saw a wealthy man and spread your legs. Don't insult my intelligence." Patricia's words dripped with venom. "I've seen dozens of girls like you circling my son since he made his first million. You were just faster than the others." Michael carefully moved closer to the kitchen entrance, staying hidden. What he saw made his heart stop. Emily, his wife, the woman carrying his child, was pressed against the kitchen island like a trapped animal. Her hands protectively cradled her rounded belly. Her face was pale, streaked with tears. She wore a simple nightgown, even though it was 3 in the afternoon. But it was the detail that devastated him completely. Emily was barefoot on the cold tile floor in January. "Where are your slippers?" Patricia demanded. "I've told you not to walk around this house looking like trash. What if Michael's business partners see you like this?" You took them," Emily said quietly. "You said I was tracking dirt through the house." "Because you were. This isn't some trailer park, Emily. This is a Carter family home. Standards must be maintained." Michael's mind raced back to the phone call 2 days ago. Emily had sounded congested, like she had a cold. She'd mentioned feeling tired. He'd assumed it was normal pregnancy fatigue. Now he realized she'd been crying. "I'm going back to my room," Emily said, turning toward the stairs. "Not yet." Patricia grabbed Emily's wrist. "You haven't finished your chores." "Chores?" Emily's voice cracked. "Patricia, I'm pregnant. The doctor said I need rest." "The doctor said you're perfectly healthy for light housework. Don't be dramatic." Patricia released Emily's wrist with a push. "The guest bathroom upstairs needs cleaning. Michael's business associates are visiting next week, and I won't have them thinking we live in filth." "But I cleaned it yesterday." "And you did a terrible job. There was a water spot on the mirror." Patricia crossed her arms. "You have 1 hour.
And Emily, use the cleaning supplies in the basement. The good products are for people who know how to use them properly. Emily nodded, her shoulders slumped in defeat, and shuffled toward the basement stairs. Michael watched his mother return to her afternoon tea in the sunroom, her perfectly manicured nails wrapped around bone china, her expression satisfied. For 38 years, Patricia Carter had been the center of Michael's universe. When his father died when he was 12, she'd raised him alone, pushed him to succeed, celebrated every victory. When he launched his first startup from their garage, she was his first investor, using her inheritance to give him seed money. He owed her everything. Or so he'd always believed. Michael quietly retreated to his home office and locked the door. His hands shook as he pulled out his phone and opened the mansion's security app. If this was happening now, in day broadlight, what had been happening during his frequent business trips? The first video he pulled up was from 3 days ago. Emily appeared on screen, descending the stairs carefully, one hand on the railing, one hand on her belly. She wore a maternity dress, modest and pretty. Patricia met her at the bottom. "Where are you going dressed like that?" Patricia's voice came through the speaker clearly. "I have a doctor's appointment for the baby, remember? You said you'd drive me." "In that dress? You look like you're trying to seduce the doctor." Patricia shook her head. "Go change into something less attention-seeking, and hurry. If we're late, I'm not rescheduling." Michael watched Emily bite her lip, fighting tears, and climb back up the stairs. The timestamp showed they'd left 47 minutes later. Emily had missed her appointment window. Michael's jaw clenched as he scrolled to another video. He needed to see more. He needed to understand exactly what had been happening in his home while he'd been building his empire. What he was about to discover would shatter everything he thought he knew about the woman who raised him. If you think a mother's love should never become a weapon, keep watching, because what Michael found in those security recordings would expose a betrayal so calculated, so cruel, that it would force him to choose between the woman who gave him life and the woman carrying his child. And that choice would lead to the most devastating confrontation a family could face.
Michael sat in his office for 2 hours, his coffee growing cold as he watched week after week of security footage. Each video revealed a new layer of systematic cruelty that made him physically ill. The first pattern he noticed was the food. In one video from 3 weeks ago, Emily entered the kitchen around noon, clearly hungry. She opened the refrigerator and reached for a container of leftover chicken. "That's for tonight's dinner." Patricia appeared behind her like a ghost. "Michael is bringing home a client. We need to make a good impression." "I'm sorry, I didn't know. I'll make something else." "There's bread in the pantry. Make yourself a sandwich." Patricia's tone suggested even that was too generous. Michael watched his pregnant wife make a plain sandwich with just butter. No meat, no cheese, nothing else. She ate it standing at the counter while Patricia watched with cold eyes. But it was the next video that made Michael's hands shake with rage. The timestamp was from 2 in the morning, 4 days ago. Emily appeared in the kitchen, moving slowly, one hand on her back. She was clearly in pain. She opened the refrigerator and pulled out a container of fruit salad. The lights suddenly blazed on. "What are you doing?" Patricia demanded, appearing in a silk robe. Emily jumped, nearly dropping the container. "I'm sorry, the baby's been kicking. I'm hungry. The doctor said I should eat small meals. At 2 in the morning? This is ridiculous." Patricia snatched the container from Emily's hands. "Your kitchen? Patricia, this is Michael's house. Our house." The slap echoed through the security audio. Michael watched his mother strike his pregnant wife across the face. Emily stumbled backward, her hand flying to her reddening cheek, tears instantly streaming down her face. "Don't you ever talk back to me," Patricia hissed. I don't care if you're carrying my grandchild. In this house, you will show me respect. Do you understand? Emily nodded, sobbing quietly, one hand on her belly as if protecting the baby from the violence. Go back to your room, and if I catch you stealing food again, there will be consequences. Michael paused the video, his vision blurring with tears of rage. His mother had hit Emily, his pregnant wife, and Emily had never said a word to him about it. Why hadn't she told him? The answer came in the next video he found. The timestamp was from 5 weeks ago, shortly after Patricia had moved in. Michael had been in New York for a conference. Emily appeared on screen in the living room, holding her phone. "Michael, hi honey," Emily said to the screen. She was video calling him. "I just wanted to—" Patricia walked into frame and snatched the phone from Emily's hand. "Michael, darling!" Patricia's voice transformed into warm honey. "Your wife was just telling me how much she misses you. Isn't that sweet?" Michael could hear his own voice from the phone speaker. "Put Emily back on, Mom." "Oh, she just ran to the bathroom. Morning sickness, you know how it is. I'll have her call you back." Patricia ended the call before Michael could respond. The moment the call disconnected, Patricia's face transformed back into cold stone. Rule number 1, you don't bother Michael with complaints while he's working. He's building an empire, and you're a distraction he doesn't need. Patricia held the phone out of reach as Emily tried to take it back. Rule number 2, if you ever try to paint me as the villain in this story, I will make sure Michael sees you for the manipulative gold digger you really are. Do you understand? You can't keep my phone. This phone was purchased with my son's money. Everything in this house belongs to him. You're just living here on borrowed time until he realizes his mistake. Patricia dropped the phone on the couch. "One word to Michael about our conversations, and I'll tell him you've been having mental health episodes, pregnancy hormones making you paranoid and delusional. Who do you think he'll believe, the mother who raised him or the waitress he married after knowing her for 6 months?" Michael watched Emily collapse onto the couch, defeated, as Patricia walked away triumphant. The pieces were falling into place with horrifying clarity. Michael scrolled through more footage, finding pattern after pattern of abuse. Patricia forcing Emily to reorganize the entire linen closet while standing on a step stool, despite Emily's visible exhaustion and growing belly. Patricia throwing away the prenatal vitamins Emily's doctor had prescribed, calling them overpriced placebos for paranoid mothers. Patricia intercepting mail from Emily's family in Oregon, hiding letters and cards that Emily never knew had arrived. But it was the video from 6 days ago that completely destroyed him. Michael had called from Seattle, asking to speak with Emily. Patricia answered his call. "She's resting, dear. The pregnancy has been hard on her." "Can you wake her? I just want to hear her voice." "Michael, the doctor specifically said she needs uninterrupted rest. You don't want to stress the baby, do you?" "No, of course not. Tell her I love you." "I will, sweetheart. She's lucky to have such a caring husband." The moment Patricia hung up, Michael watched her walk upstairs to the bedroom where Emily was sitting up, clearly awake, tears streaming down her face. "Was that Michael?" Emily asked hopefully. "No, wrong number." Patricia turned and left without another word. Michael watched his wife crumble, crying into her pillow, one hand protectively over her belly. His mother had deliberately kept them apart. Michael's phone buzzed, a text from Emily. "Hope your meetings are going well. Miss you. The baby misses you too." The timestamp on the text was from 30 minutes ago, right around the time he'd witnessed the confrontation in the kitchen. Emily was still trying to be brave for him, still trying to protect him from the truth. Michael opened his laptop and began downloading every security video from the past 8 months, every moment of abuse, every cruel word, every calculated lie. He copied everything to 3 separate encrypted drives. Then he made a call to his lawyer. "Robert, I need you to prepare divorce papers." "Divorce? Michael, you've been married less than 2 years." "Not for Emily, for my mother." "Your mother? Michael, you can't divorce."
I'm removing her from my life legally. I want her removed from my will, removed from all bank accounts, removed from any legal authority over my affairs or my child, and I want a restraining order drafted and ready to file." Silence on the other end. Then, what happened? "She's been abusing my pregnant wife for 8 months. I have proof." "Michael, these are serious allegations. If you're going to move forward with this, you need to be absolutely certain." "I'm certain." Michael's voice was ice. "I'll send you the evidence within the hour. How fast can you move?" "If the evidence is as clear as you say, I can have papers ready by tomorrow morning." "Do it. And Robert, total confidentiality. Nobody can know about this until I'm ready." After hanging up, Michael sat in the darkness of his office, watching one more video. This one was from Emily's first week in the house, before Patricia moved in. Emily was dancing in the kitchen, her small baby bump just starting to show, singing softly to music only she could hear. She was radiant, happy, glowing with joy. 8 months later, that woman had been replaced by a frightened ghost. Michael's mother had systematically destroyed his wife's spirit while he'd been too busy building his empire to notice. The abandoned boy who once thought his mother could do no wrong was about to discover that the cruelest betrayals come from the people we trust most. And when Michael finally confronted the truth, he would have to choose between family loyalty and protecting the family he was building. That choice would lead to a confrontation so explosive it would shatter everything the Carter family had ever been.
Michael didn't sleep that night. While Patricia and Emily slept in their separate rooms, he sat in his office organizing evidence that would destroy the woman who raised him. By dawn, he had created a detailed timeline, 8 months of systematic psychological abuse, documented through security footage, text messages, and phone records. Every cruel word, every manipulation, every lie. But he needed more than videos. He needed to understand the full scope of what Patricia had done. At 7 in the morning, Michael drove to a nondescript office building in downtown Austin. The private investigator his lawyer recommended, Sarah Martinez, had agreed to meet him on short notice. "Mr. Carter." Sarah extended her hand as Michael entered her office. She was in her mid-40s, with sharp eyes that had clearly seen it all. "Your lawyer sent over the basic details. Elder abuse cases are my specialty, but this situation is different." "It's not elder abuse. My mother is the abuser." Michael set his laptop on her desk. "I need you to help me understand what I'm dealing with." For the next hour, Sarah watched the security footage in silence. Michael observed her professional mask crack several times, particularly during the video of Patricia slapping Emily. "This is domestic abuse, textbook psychological manipulation combined with physical violence. Your mother has created an environment where Emily feels completely powerless." "Why didn't Emily tell me?" Michael's voice broke. "Why didn't she just call me and tell me what was happening?" Sarah pulled up the video of Patricia threatening Emily about mental health episodes. "Because your mother is an expert manipulator. She's isolated your wife, controlled her communication, and created a threat that if Emily speaks up, she'll be labeled as mentally unstable." Sarah paused the video. "Think about it, Mr. Carter. Who would you have believed 8 months ago? Your mother, who raised you alone and invested in your success, or your wife of 6 months, who the mother had probably already been subtly undermining in your mind?" Michael thought back to small comments Patricia had made. "Emily seems tired a lot. Maybe she's not used to this lifestyle. Did Emily really need another maternity dress? We should be teaching her financial responsibility. Emily's family keeps calling. It's like they can't let her grow up and live her own life." At the time, he thought his mother was just being practical, helpful. Now he saw them for what they were, seeds of doubt, carefully planted. "What else do I need to know?" Michael asked. Sarah opened a notebook. "I'll need access to your mother's phone records, email, and social media. If she's this calculated at home, she's likely managing her public image carefully. People like this often have a network, friends who enable the behavior, or family members who've seen this pattern before. My father died when I was 12. Patricia raised me alone. I don't have siblings. What about her friends, social circles? Michael thought about it. His mother had a weekly book club with other wealthy Austin women. She volunteered at a charity foundation. She attended church every Sunday. She's well-connected, respected in the community. That tracks. Public saints, private monsters. Sarah made a note. I'll need you to get me access to her devices. Even just an hour with her phone could reveal a lot. She has a tennis match every Thursday morning. She's gone from 9 to noon. Perfect. I'll come to your house this Thursday with a tech specialist. Sarah closed her notebook. Mr. Carter, I need to ask you something difficult. What's your end game here? Are you trying to fix your marriage, or are you trying to remove your mother from your life? Both. Neither. I don't know. Michael rubbed his face. I just want Emily safe. I want our baby safe. Everything else, I'll figure out. You need to decide soon, because once you confront your mother with this evidence, there's no going back. People like Patricia don't change. They double down. They play victim. They turn everyone against you. Sarah's expression softened. Are you prepared for your mother to wage war against you? Michael thought about Emily's face in those videos, the fear, the tears, the way she'd protected her belly when Patricia had slapped her. If that's what it takes, yes. After leaving Sarah's office, Michael drove to a coffee shop across from Emily's doctor's office. According to the appointment card he'd found in Emily's purse, she had a checkup at 10. He waited. At 9:45, Patricia's Mercedes pulled into the parking lot. Emily got out of the passenger seat, moving slowly, her hand on her lower back. Even from a distance, Michael could see how much weight she'd lost, despite being 6 months pregnant. Patricia didn't get out of the car. Michael watched Emily enter the building alone, then followed at a distance. The waiting room was full of pregnant women with their partners, happy couples discussing baby names and nursery colors. Emily sat alone in the corner, her hands folded over her belly, her eyes Jennifer, Michael's assistant, sent her report at 6 that evening. What Michael read made everything click into a horrifying pattern. Patricia Carter wasn't just attending charity events and book clubs. She was the chairwoman of the Austin Women's Wellness Foundation, an organization that claimed to support new mothers but had a dark reputation among local family lawyers. Sarah, the investigator, had flagged several concerning connections. 3 women from your mother's social circle have had daughters-in-law who mysteriously lost custody of their children, Sarah explained over the phone. The pattern is always the same. New mothers accused of mental instability, postpartum depression spiraling into psychosis, emergency custody granted to grandmothers for the child's safety. Michael felt cold dread wash over him. You're saying my mother is planning to take my child? I'm saying she's building a case. Look at the documentation. Sarah sent over more files. Social media posts establishing Emily as difficult and unstable. Medical appointments Emily has missed, which can be framed as neglecting prenatal care. And I'd bet anything that when we access your mother's phone, we'll find she's been documenting what she calls concerning behaviors. Michael pulled up his laptop and searched for the Austin Women's Wellness Foundation. The website looked legitimate. Smiling mothers, happy babies, resources for postpartum support. But when he dug deeper into the board members, he recognized several names from Patricia's social circle. Martha Wellington, Diane Crawford, Susan Mitchell. All wealthy, all powerful, all grandmothers who lived in mansions that were notably lacking the presence of their sons' wives. His phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. Home by 8? I'm making dinner. Emily's resting upstairs. She had another episode today. Episode, that word again. He called Emily directly, using her cell phone. It rang and rang before going to voicemail. He tried again, same result. Then he checked the security cameras in real time. Emily was in the bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed, holding her phone and crying. The phone was ringing in her hand. She was staring at his name on the screen, but she wasn't answering.
He zoomed in on the video feed. Emily's lips were moving. He couldn't hear what she was saying, but he could read her lips. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I can't. I can't." Someone had broken her wife so completely that she was afraid to even answer his phone calls. Michael grabbed his keys and drove faster than he should have. He parked down the street, not wanting to alert Patricia to his early arrival. Using the side entrance, he slipped into the house quietly. Voices drifted from the kitchen. "You're being unreasonable again, Emily." Patricia's voice was sharp. "Michael called me, not you. That should tell you something. He's my husband. He's my son, and he's starting to see what I've seen all along. You're not stable enough to be a mother." Michael edged closer, staying out of sight. "I'm perfectly stable," Emily said, her voice shaking. "I'm tired and scared because you've been what? Taking care of you? Trying to help you? This is the problem, Emily. You can't accept help. You can't follow simple instructions. You missed another doctor's appointment last week. Because you said we had to reschedule. I said we should consider rescheduling. You made the final decision, but you'll blame me, won't you? Just like you blame me for everything else." Michael heard Emily start to cry. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. Emotionally unstable, unable to handle basic responsibilities. What's going to happen when the baby comes? Are you going to fall apart every time he cries?" "It's a girl," Emily whispered. "We're having a girl." Silence. Michael peeked around the corner and saw Patricia's face twist with something that looked like disgust. "A girl, of course." Patricia's voice dripped with disdain. "Michael deserves a son to carry on the Carter name, and you couldn't even do that right." Michael's hands clenched into fists. They'd found out the baby's gender 2 weeks ago during an ultrasound. He'd been thrilled. A daughter, a little girl to spoil and protect and love. Patricia had been on that video call with them. She'd smiled and said all the right things. Now he knew it was all an act. "I think it's time we had a serious conversation," Patricia continued. "After the baby is born, you're gonna need help. Real help. I've been researching some excellent postpartum care facilities." "Facilities?" Emily's voice cracked with panic. "For your own good. You're showing all the warning signs of someone who won't cope well with motherhood. It's better to be proactive." Patricia's voice took on a false gentleness. "You could hurt yourself. Or worse, you could hurt the baby. We need to prevent that." "I would never hurt my baby." "You say that now, but postpartum psychosis is real, Emily, and with your family history—" "My family history?" Emily sounded confused. "There's no mental illness in my family." "Are you sure about that?"
Michael held Emily for a long time in that kitchen while she cried 8 months of terror and isolation into his shoulder. Her body shook with sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deep and broken inside her. "I thought I was going crazy," Emily whispered against his chest. "She kept saying I was forgetting things, doing things I didn't remember, moving objects around and then acting like I'd misplaced them. I started to believe her." "That's called gaslighting," Michael said softly. "It's psychological abuse, and it's not your fault." "But I should have told you. I should have been stronger." "No." Michael lifted her face so she had to look at him. "She isolated you. She threatened you. She made you think I wouldn't believe you. That's what abusers do, Emily. They make their victims feel like they're the problem." Emily's hand trembled as she touched his face, like she couldn't quite believe he was real. "What happens now?" "Now you tell me everything, every detail, every moment, and then we're going to make sure she can never hurt you again." They moved to the small sitting room off the kitchen, the one Patricia rarely used because she considered it too informal for guests. Michael made Emily tea and wrapped a blanket around her shoulders even though the house was warm. She needed to feel safe. And then Emily talked. She told him about the first week Patricia had moved in, how sweet and helpful she'd seemed, how Patricia had insisted on giving the young couple space,
but slowly started inserting herself into every decision. She'd make comments about my cooking, little things at first, maybe a bit less salt next time, or Michael's father preferred his steaks medium rare. I thought she was just trying to help, but the comments had grown sharper, more frequent, until Emily found herself afraid to cook anything without Patricia's approval. Then she started commenting on my clothes, my hair, the way I spoke to your business partners at dinners. Emily pulled the blanket tighter. She made me feel like everything about me was wrong, like I was an embarrassment to you. Michael listened, his rage building with every word. Emily described how Patricia had slowly taken over the household management. At first, it had seemed like a kindness, giving Emily a break during her difficult first trimester. But then Patricia had started making decisions without consulting Emily, hiring and firing housekeepers, changing Emily's doctor appointments, even choosing Emily's maternity clothes. She threw away half my wardrobe, said they weren't appropriate for a Carter family member. I had to wear what she bought me, and if I complained, she'd say you were paying for everything, so I should be grateful. The financial control was subtle but complete. Patricia had convinced Emily that checking with her before any purchase was just being respectful of Michael's money. I couldn't even buy prenatal vitamins without her approval, Emily whispered. She said the ones my doctor recommended were overpriced. She gave me generic ones from her medical contacts. I don't even know if they were real vitamins or just sugar pills. Michael made a mental note to have Emily see a new doctor immediately for a complete checkup. But it was Emily's next revelation that made Michael's blood run cold. 2 weeks ago, she took me to meet her friends at the country club. It was strange. They kept asking me questions, really specific questions about my family history, my health, my relationship with you. It felt like an interrogation. What kind of questions? About my parents' marriage? About whether there was any mental illness in my family? About how I was adjusting to pregnancy? About whether I ever felt overwhelmed or anxious? Emily's voice shook. One of them, Martha Wellington, she's a psychiatrist. She kept pushing me to admit I was struggling. Did you? I said pregnancy was hard but beautiful, that I was excited to be a mother. She looked up at him. Martha looked at Patricia and said something like, "Denial is often the first sign." I didn't understand what she meant. Michael understood perfectly. Patricia arranged for a psychiatrist in her social circle to evaluate Emily without Emily's knowledge or consent. It was unethical, possibly illegal, and definitely part of a larger plan. Has anyone else asked you questions like that? Emily nodded. Patricia's lawyer came by last week, said he was just doing routine estate planning updates, but he asked me to sign some papers. Patricia said it was just standard stuff about the baby's inheritance rights. Do you remember what the paper said? Not really. I was so tired, and Patricia kept rushing me. She said you already reviewed everything. Emily's eyes widened with horror. Oh God, Michael, what did I sign? We'll find out. Michael pulled out his phone and texted his lawyer. Send me copies of any documents my mother has filed recently related to my family. They sat in silence for a few minutes.
Michael drove to the Four Seasons Hotel in downtown Austin. They checked in under Emily's maiden name, Peterson, paying cash to avoid any credit card traces that Patricia might monitor. The suite was on the 23rd floor with a view of the city lights. Emily stood at the window, one hand on her belly, looking smaller and more fragile than Michael had ever seen her. I feel like I'm in a movie, Emily said softly, like this isn't real life. It won't be real for much longer. Michael pulled out his laptop. Tomorrow we change everything, but tonight you're safe. Michael ordered room service, everything Emily had been craving for months but hadn't been allowed to eat. A cheeseburger with extra pickles, French fries, a chocolate milkshake, real food instead of the tiny, judged portions Patricia had been controlling. Emily cried when the food arrived. I'd forgotten what it felt like to just eat without someone watching, without someone commenting on every bite. While Emily ate, Michael called Sarah Martinez, the private investigator. "Change of plans," Michael said. "I need you to move faster. Tomorrow morning, I need you at my house at 9. My mother has a standing tennis match, but she might cancel it if she suspects something." "What happened?" "She's escalated. She has medical power of attorney over my wife through forged documents. She's been building a CPS case. She had a psychiatrist evaluate my wife without consent." Michael listed everything Emily had told him. "We're out of time." "Jesus," Sarah muttered. "Okay, I'll bring my tech specialist and a forensic psychologist. We'll document everything in her house. Phone records, computer files, handwritten notes, everything." "There's more. She's part of a network. Other wealthy women in Austin who have done this before. I need you to investigate them, too." "That's going to take longer." "Then I'll hire more investigators. I want every single woman in that network exposed." Michael's voice was steel. "They've been destroying families for years. It ends now." After hanging up, Michael received an email from his lawyer, Robert. The subject line read, "Urgent, legal action already filed." Michael's stomach dropped as he opened it. Patricia had beaten them to the punch. That afternoon, while Michael had been comforting Emily, Patricia had filed an emergency petition with the Texas Family Court. She was requesting temporary guardianship of Emily based on immediate concerns about mental health and safety of the unborn child. The petition listed a dozen incidents of Emily's supposedly unstable behavior. Wandering the house at inappropriate hours, appearing confused and disoriented, neglecting basic self-care, frequently appearing in nightclothes at all hours, making accusations of abuse against family members, demonstrating paranoid tendencies, missing multiple prenatal appointments, showing disregard for unborn child's health. Every lie Patricia had told Michael at breakfast was now official legal documentation. But there was more. Patricia had attached sworn statements from 3 of her friends: Martha Wellington, the psychiatrist; Diane Crawford, a former family court judge; Susan Mitchell, a pediatrician. All 3 statements painted Emily as increasingly unstable, dangerous to herself, and unfit to care for a newborn. All 3 were lies, but they were official, notarized lies from respected professionals. "An emergency hearing is scheduled tomorrow at 2 p.m., Robert wrote in his email. "Michael, this is bad. Judge Morrison is hearing the case, and he has a reputation for erring on the side of caution when it comes to child safety. If Patricia presents a convincing case, he could grant temporary guardianship immediately." Michael felt the walls closing in. His mother had been planning this for months, maybe since the moment she'd moved into our house. "Emily," Michael said carefully, turning to his wife, "we need to talk about tomorrow." Emily set down her milkshake. The brief moment of peace on her face vanished. "What's wrong?" Michael showed her the legal documents. He watched her face crumble as she read each accusation. "She's saying I'm insane. She's saying I'm dangerous to our baby." "She's lying, and tomorrow we're going to prove it." "How? She has statements from a psychiatrist, a judge, and a pediatrician. I'm just me. Who's going to believe me?" "Everyone who sees the evidence I've gathered." Michael pulled up his laptop and showed Emily the security footage. Every moment of abuse, every cruel word, every lie Patricia had told Michael. Emily watched in silence, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't imagine any of it," she said finally. "Of course you didn't." Michael closed the laptop. "Emily, I need to ask you something difficult. Are you willing to fight? Because tomorrow is going to be brutal. Patricia is going to say horrible things about you in court.
Her lawyers are going to try to make you look unstable. They're going to use your emotions against you." Emily placed both hands on her belly, a protective gesture Michael had seen her make countless times in the security footage. "I'll do whatever it takes to protect our daughter," Emily said firmly. "I won't let that woman take my baby." That night, Michael barely slept. He spent hours organizing evidence with Robert on a video call. Every security recording, every text message, every bank record showing Patricia's suspicious cash withdrawals. "The judge needs to see this isn't an isolated incident. We need to show a pattern of calculated abuse and manipulation," Robert explained. "What about the statements from her friends, the psychiatrist who evaluated Emily at the country club?" "We're filing ethics complaints against all of them. Evaluating someone without their informed consent violates every professional standard," Robert made notes. "But that's a long-term strategy. Tomorrow, we need to focus on getting that guardianship petition dismissed." At 3 in the morning, Michael received a text from an unknown number. "I know what Patricia Carter is doing. I can help. Call me." A phone number followed. Michael hesitated, then dialed. A woman answered on the first ring. "Mr. Carter, thank you for calling. My name is Rebecca Morrison, Judge Morrison's daughter." Michael's heart raced. "Your father is hearing our case tomorrow." "I know, and I know my father won't accept outside information before a hearing, but I needed you to know something." Rebecca's voice shook slightly. "Patricia Carter did to my sister-in-law exactly what she's doing to your wife." "What?" 5 years ago, my brother married a woman Patricia didn't approve of. Patricia launched the same campaign, the accusations, the medical evaluations, the emergency petitions. Rebecca took a shaky breath. "My brother believed his mother. He let her take custody of his daughter. By the time he realized what had happened, it was too late. The baby was being raised by Patricia in her network. My sister-in-law had a complete breakdown and lost all parental rights." Michael felt sick. "Where is she now?" "In a psychiatric facility in Dallas. She's been there for 4 years. Rebecca's voice hardened. "Patricia destroyed her, and she's going to do the same thing to your wife unless you stop her." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because my brother died last year. Suicide. He couldn't live with what he'd allowed to happen to his wife and daughter." Rebecca was crying now. "I can't bring him back, but I can help you stop Patricia from destroying another family." "Your father?" "Can't know I called you. It would be grounds for recital. But I can tell you that my father has started to have doubts about Patricia's network. There have been too many similar cases, too many similarities. He's been quietly investigating." "Then why is he hearing this case?" "Because Patricia doesn't know he's suspicious. If you present your evidence effectively, if you show the pattern, my father will see it." "But, Mr. Carter, you need to understand, Patricia has spent years building her reputation. She has powerful friends. This isn't going to be easy."
"I don't need easy," Michael said. "I need my wife and daughter safe." After hanging up, Michael returned to the bedroom. Emily was sleeping fitfully, one hand protectively over her belly even in sleep. Michael made a promise to his unborn daughter right then. "No one is going to hurt your mother," he whispered. "No one is going to take you away. I don't care who I have to fight. I don't care what it costs. You're going to grow up in a home filled with love, not manipulation and fear." At 7 in the morning, Michael's phone rang. It was Sarah, the investigator. "Michael, we have a problem. I went to your house at 6 this morning, earlier than planned because I had a bad feeling. Patricia was already gone." "Gone where?" "I don't know, but the house has been cleaned. I mean, professionally cleaned. All the security camera hard drives are gone. Your office has been wiped. It's like she knew we were coming." Michael's blood ran cold. Someone tipped her off. "That's not the worst part." Sarah's voice was grim. "I talked to your neighbors. They saw a moving truck at your house last night around midnight.
Patricia was loading boxes. Boxes of what? They couldn't tell, but Michael, I think she's destroying evidence, anything that might contradict her version of events. Michael looked at his laptop, at the backup drive sitting next to it. She doesn't know I have copies. Are you sure? Michael thought about Patricia's computer skills. She could barely send an email without help, but she had friends who were tech-savvy, friends who might have helped her. I need to secure this evidence immediately. If anything happens to these drives, bring them to my office, now, before the hearing. I have a secure safe. Sarah paused. Michael, Patricia is escalating because she knows time is running out. People like her, when they're cornered, they become dangerous. You need to be careful. As Michael raced to secure the only evidence that could save his family, Patricia Carter was making her own preparations. The emergency hearing would determine not just the custody of an unborn child, but the future of every family in Austin whose grandmother had too much power and too little conscience. And in a courtroom where reputations mattered more than truth, Michael was about to discover that fighting for your family sometimes means burning down everything you thought you knew about the people you love.
The Travis County Courthouse loomed ahead as Michael and Emily arrived at 1:30 in the afternoon. Emily wore a simple maternity dress that Michael had bought her that morning, her hair pulled back, her face showing the exhaustion of 8 months of abuse. She looked exactly like what Patricia wanted her to look like, fragile, overwhelmed, and unstable. "Remember what Robert said," Michael reminded her as they climbed the steps. "Stay calm. Answer only what you're asked. Don't let them provoke you." "What if I cry?" Emily's voice trembled. "She's going to say I'm emotionally unstable if I cry." "Then you cry. You're 6 months pregnant and facing false accusations. Anyone would cry." Michael squeezed her hand. "Emily, crying isn't weakness. It's human." They met Robert in the hallway outside courtroom 4. Michael's lawyer looked grim. "Patricia's team just handed over additional evidence," Robert said, showing them a thick folder. "More statements from her network, photos allegedly showing Emily in concerning states, text messages between you and Patricia where she expressed worry about Emily's mental health." Michael flipped through the documents. Every text message had been taken out of context. Photos of Emily looking tired or upset were labeled with false timestamps and descriptions. One photo showed Emily crying in the kitchen. Patricia's description claimed, "Found Emily in this state at 3 a.m., incoherent and confused, not remembering how she got downstairs." Michael remembered that night. He'd seen it on the security footage. Emily had been crying because Patricia had just thrown away the birthday cake Emily had spent hours making for their adoption anniversary. "This is all lies," Michael said. "Yes, but they're convincing lies to someone who doesn't know the full story." Robert lowered his voice. "Michael, I need to prepare you. Judge Morrison might grant temporary guardianship today, pending a full investigation. If that happens, Patricia will have legal authority to make decisions about Emily's medical care and possibly the baby's custody after birth. Over my dead body." "That's not how family law works. If the judge believes there's an immediate risk to the child, he'll err on the side of caution." Robert looked at Emily. "Mrs. Carter, I need you to be completely honest with me. Is there anything in your past that Patricia could use against you? Anything at all?" Emily shook her head. "I've never been arrested, never been in therapy, never had any mental health issues. I had a normal childhood in Oregon. I worked as a nurse before meeting Michael. There's nothing." "Good. Then we focus on her lies versus your truth." Robert checked his watch. "Let's go in." The courtroom was smaller than Michael expected. Judge Morrison sat at the bench, a man in his mid-60s with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes. He was reading through documents, his expression unreadable.
Patricia sat at the plaintiff's table with two lawyers Michael didn't recognize, expensive lawyers in designer suits. Patricia herself wore a conservative navy dress and pearls, her hair perfect, her expression one of concerned worry. She looked like everyone's ideal grandmother, caring, responsible, trustworthy. Michael wanted to vomit. When Patricia saw them enter, her expression flickered just for a moment with something that might have been fear, but it was quickly replaced by that practiced mask of concern. "All rise," the bailiff called. Judge Morrison looked up from his documents. "Please be seated. This is an emergency hearing regarding petition for temporary guardianship filed by Patricia Carter concerning Emily Carter and her unborn child. Is that correct?" Patricia's lawyer stood. "Yes, Your Honor. My client has witnessed increasingly concerning behavior over the past 8 months. Mrs. Emily Carter has shown signs of mental instability, including paranoid delusions, neglect of self-care and medical appointments, and episodes of confusion and disorientation." "And you believe this poses an immediate risk to the unborn child?" "We do, Your Honor. Mrs. Patricia Carter has been doing her best to support her daughter-in-law, but the situation has deteriorated to the point where professional intervention is necessary." Judge Morrison turned to Robert. "Counsel for the defense?" "Your Honor, this petition is based entirely on false accusations made by a woman who has been systematically abusing my client for 8 months. We have video evidence, witness testimony, and documentation proving that Mrs. Patricia Carter is part of a network of wealthy Austin women who have repeatedly used false mental health claims to take custody of their grandchildren from daughters-in-law they disapprove of." One of Patricia's lawyers shot to her feet. "Your Honor, this is outrageous. My client is a respected community member of Austin, chairwoman of the Women's Wellness Foundation, and a devoted grandmother trying to protect her future grandchild." "From her own mother?" Robert cut in. "The baby's mother, who has no history of mental illness, no criminal record, no substance abuse issues, and no documented behavior problems until she moved into Mrs. Patricia Carter's house 8 months ago?" Judge Morrison raised his hand for silence. "I want to see this evidence, both sides, everything you've got." For the next hour, the courtroom became a battle of documentation. Patricia's lawyers presented their carefully curated evidence, photos of Emily looking distraught, statements from Patricia's wealthy friends claiming to have witnessed Emily's episodes, the medical power of attorney Emily had unknowingly signed. Martha Wellington, the psychiatrist, took the stand. "I observed Mrs. Emily Carter on several occasions at social gatherings. She displayed classic signs of anxiety, paranoia, and emotional dysregulation. When I gently suggested she might benefit from therapy, she became defensive and accused us of conspiring against her." "Did you perform a formal psychiatric evaluation?" Robert asked during cross-examination. "No, but did Mrs. Carter know she was being evaluated?" "Not formally, but did you have Mrs. Carter's consent to form a professional opinion about her mental health?" Martha shifted uncomfortably. "The situation called for observation. Answer the question. Did you have her consent?" "No." No further questions. Robert returned to his seat. Then it was their turn. Robert presented the security footage on a laptop connected to the courtroom's display screen. Every person in the room watched in silence as Patricia's abuse played out in high definition. The food control, the isolation, the verbal abuse, the slap that had left Emily's face red and her eyes filled with tears. Michael watched Judge Morrison's expression harden with each new video. When the footage ended, Robert called Emily to the stand. Emily walked slowly to the witness box, one hand protectively over her belly. She was sworn in, her voice barely above a whisper. "Mrs. Carter, can you describe your relationship with your mother-in-law before she moved into your home?" "It was good," Emily said softly. "I thought she liked me. She was always kind when Michael was around. She said she was excited about the baby." "When did things change?" "About a week after she moved in. She started making small comments about my cooking, my clothes, my housekeeping. Then the comments got meaner. She started controlling what I ate, where I went, who I talked to." "Did you tell your husband?" Emily's eyes filled with tears. She said if I did, she'd tell him I was having mental breakdowns. She said he'd believe her over me because she's her mother, and I'm just the woman he married. Why did you believe her? Because she was right. Michael loves his mother. She raised him alone. She invested in his company. She's been the most important person in his life for 38 years. I've only been in his life for 2 years. Why would he believe me over her? The courtroom was silent. Judge Morrison spoke for the first time in an hour. Mrs.
Carter, did your mother-in-law ever physically harm you? Emily touched her cheek, the memory visible in her eyes. She slapped me. About 3 weeks ago. I was trying to get food from the refrigerator at night because the baby was kicking and I was hungry. She said I was stealing food from her kitchen. Her kitchen? It's not her house? No, it's Michael's house, our house. But she made me feel like I was just allowed to be there, like a guest who'd overstayed her welcome. Patricia's lawyer stood. Your Honor, Mrs. Emily Carter is clearly displaying the paranoid delusions my client warned about. Counselor, I'm watching video evidence of your client slapping a pregnant woman. Judge Morrison's voice was ice. Sit down. Robert continued. Mrs. Carter, why didn't you leave? Why didn't you call the police or seek help? Because I had nowhere to go. Emily's voice broke. Patricia had isolated me from my family. She intercepted my mail and phone calls. She told them I was too busy with pregnancy to talk. By the time I realized what was happening, I felt completely alone. She looked at the judge. And I was terrified she'd find a way to take my baby. She kept talking about how I wasn't fit to be a mother, how I'd need professional care after the birth. I didn't understand what she meant until Michael showed me the papers I'd signed. The medical power of attorney? I thought they were inheritance documents. She rushed me through signing them, said Michael had already approved everything. Emily's hands trembled. I trusted her. That was my mistake. Robert nodded. No further questions. Patricia's lawyer approached Emily with a sharp smile. Mrs. Carter, you claim my client abused you, yet you continued living in her home for 8 months. Why? It's not her home. Why didn't you tell your husband immediately when this alleged abuse started? Because she threatened. Yes or no, Mrs. Carter, did you tell your husband? No, but did you seek medical attention after this alleged slap? No. Did you call the police? No. Did you tell anyone at all about this alleged abuse? Emily's face crumpled. No. So we only have your word after the fact that any of this happened. The lawyer's voice dripped with false sympathy. Mrs. Carter, isn't it possible that pregnancy hormones have distorted your memory, that you've misinterpreted your mother-in-law's genuine concern as abuse? No, Emily said firmly. There are videos. You saw them. I saw videos of a concerned mother-in-law trying to help a daughter-in-law who appears emotionally unstable. The lawyer turned to the judge. Your Honor, my client has devoted 8 months to caring for a young woman who is clearly not coping well with pregnancy, and this is how she's repaid, with false accusations and— Counselor, Judge Morrison interrupted, I watched your client slap a pregnant woman on that video. I heard your client threaten her with a commitment to a psychiatric facility. I saw your client force her to sleep in a cold basement. What part of that looked like care to you? Patricia's lawyer faltered. Your Honor, context. I've seen enough context. Judge Morrison looked at Patricia directly for the first time. Mrs. Patricia Carter, please stand. Patricia stood, her composure finally cracking. Michael could see fear in her eyes. I've been a family court judge for 23 years.
I've seen a lot of manipulation, a lot of people using the system to hurt their own families. But this, he gestured to the evidence, this is systematic abuse disguised as care, and you had the audacity to bring it into my courtroom wrapped in concern for a child's welfare. Your Honor, if I may, Patricia's voice shook. You may not. Morrison's expression was granite. Petition for guardianship denied. Furthermore, I'm issuing an immediate restraining order. You are to have no contact with Emily Carter or, upon birth, her child. You are to vacate any shared residence within 24 hours. Patricia's face went white. You can't. I can and I am. And Mrs. Carter, I'm referring this case to the District Attorney for criminal investigation. The Texas Department of Family Services will be also conducting a review of your Women's Wellness Foundation and its practices. He looked at Martha Wellington in the gallery. Doctor, you should expect a visit from the State Medical Board. The courtroom erupted. Patricia's lawyers were on their feet protesting. Martha Wellington had gone pale. Michael pulled Emily into his arms as she sobbed with relief. But as Michael held his wife and watched his mother's perfect world crumble, he didn't yet know that Patricia's most dangerous move was still to come, because when a woman who's built her entire identity on control loses everything, she doesn't surrender, she burns it all down. And what Patricia was planning would threaten not just Emily's safety, but the life of the baby she'd spent 8 months trying to steal.
The security guard escorted Patricia from the courtroom. She walked with her head high, but Michael saw the tremor in her hands, the way her perfect mask had finally shattered. As she passed their table, she stopped. "This isn't over," Patricia said quietly, looking directly at Emily. "You've turned my son against me. You've destroyed my reputation. But you won't keep that baby. I promise you that." "Mrs. Carter, keep moving," the guard said firmly. Michael stood. "If you come near my wife or my daughter, You'll what, Michael?" Patricia's eyes were cold. "I gave you everything. I sacrificed everything for you. And this is how you repay me? By believing her lies? I've seen the videos, Mother. I know what you did." "You know nothing." Patricia's voice dropped to a whisper only they could hear. "That child should have been raised by a Carter, not some trailer trash nurse who trapped you with a pregnancy." She looked at Emily with pure hatred. "Enjoy your victory while it lasts, because I will not let you destroy my family." The guard pulled Patricia away before Michael could respond. Judge Morrison called them back to the bench. "Mr. Carter, Mrs. Carter, I'm ordering police protection for your home for the next 72 hours. Mrs. Patricia Carter's behavior suggests she may attempt retaliation." "Thank you, Your Honor," Roberts said. "I'm also fast-tracking your restraining order. It will be in effect immediately." Morrison looked at Emily with genuine concern. "Mrs. Carter, I want you to see a doctor as soon as possible. Make sure the stress from this situation hasn't affected your pregnancy." Emily nodded, still crying. "Thank you, so much." As they left the courthouse, Michael saw news vans parked outside. Someone had tipped off the media. A reporter shoved a microphone in their face. "Mr. Carter, is it true your mother abused your pregnant wife? What do you have to say about the allegations?" "No comment." Michael shielded Emily from the cameras. They made it to the car and drove straight to Emily's obstetrician. Dr. Sarah Chen had been Emily's original doctor before Patricia had started interfering with appointments. Dr. Chen examined Emily while Michael waited in the consultation room. 20 minutes felt like hours. When they finally emerged, Dr. Chen's face was serious. "Mr. Carter, your wife is severely undernourished for 6 months of pregnancy. She's lost weight instead of gaining it. Her blood pressure is elevated from stress." Dr. Chen pulled up charts on her computer. "She should be eating 3,000 calories a day. Based on her current weight, she's been getting maybe 1,500. Michael felt sick.
Will the baby be okay? The baby is surprisingly resilient. Her heartbeat is strong, and she's developing normally. But Mrs. Carter needs immediate nutritional support and stress reduction. Dr. Chen looked at Emily with sympathy. You've been through hell. Your body has been in survival mode for months. What do we need to do? Emily asked quietly. Rest, proper meals, prenatal vitamins, the real ones, not whatever you've been taking, and counseling. Dr. Chen handed her a card. This is a therapist who specializes in domestic abuse and pregnancy trauma. I want you to see her twice a week. As they drove home, Michael's phone rang constantly. His assistant, his board members, business partners who'd seen the news. He ignored all of them except one call from Sarah Martinez, the investigator. Michael, we have a problem, Sarah said without preamble. Patricia didn't go to a hotel like the restraining order requires. She went to Martha Wellington's house. So Martha Wellington lives in a compound with 6 other women from that network. They're all there right now, including Diane Crawford, the former judge, and Susan Mitchell, the pediatrician. Sarah paused. Michael, these women have spent decades building power in Austin's family court system. They're not just going to accept defeat. What can they do? The judge denied the petition. There's a restraining order. A restraining order is just paper. It doesn't stop someone who's desperate. Sarah's voice was urgent. I've been digging into their history. 3 daughters-in-law who fought back against this network ended up dead. Car accidents, suicides, one suspicious home invasion. Michael's blood ran cold. You think they'd... I think when people have this much to lose, they become unpredictable, dangerous. Sarah spoke quickly. I'm sending 2 private security guards to your house right now. Don't let Emily out of your sight. Don't eat or drink anything that could have been tampered with. And Michael, get cameras everywhere, inside and outside your house. After hanging up, Michael looked at Emily. She had fallen asleep in the passenger seat, exhausted from the hearing. Her hand rested protectively on her belly, even in sleep. He made a decision. They weren't going home, not yet. Michael drove to a gated community 40 minutes outside Austin, where his company owned a corporate retreat house. It was secluded, secure, and nobody except his assistant knew about it. Where are we? Somewhere safe. Michael helped her out of the car. We're staying here until I'm sure Patricia can't hurt you. The house was modern and comfortable. 3 bedrooms, full kitchen, and most importantly, a state-of-the-art security system. Michael called his assistant. Jennifer, I need you to do something without asking questions. Of course. Go to our house, pack clothes for Emily and me, enough for 2 weeks. Pack her prenatal vitamins, her medical records, anything personal she might need. Michael gave her a list. And Jennifer, if you see my mother or any of her friends near the house, call the police immediately. Understood. That evening, Michael cooked dinner for Emily. Real food, a proper meal with vegetables and protein and everything Dr. Chen had recommended. Emily cried again while eating. I'd forgotten what it felt like to be cared for instead of controlled. After dinner, they sat on the couch. Emily leaned against Michael, his hand on her belly, feeling their daughter kick. What do we do now? Emily asked quietly. Now, we rebuild. We focus on you getting healthy. We prepare for our daughter. Michael kissed the top of her head. And we make sure Patricia never comes near our family again. Do you think she'll actually stay away? Michael thought about the look in his mother's eyes as she left the courtroom, the cold promise in her voice. I don't know, he admitted, but I'm not taking any chances. At midnight, Michael's phone buzzed with a security alert. Someone was at our Austin house. He pulled up the security camera feed on his phone. Patricia was outside the gate, using something to try to cut through the fence. She wasn't alone. Martha Wellington and another woman were with her, all dressed in dark clothing. Michael called 911. I need to report a violation of a restraining order. He watched on camera as Patricia finally cut through the fence. She ran towards the house with surprising speed for a woman her age. He could hear her shouting now, "Michael, Michael, please, I just want to talk. I just want to explain." But Michael knew better. Patricia didn't want to talk. Patricia wanted to finish what she had started. As Patricia Carter stood outside that safe house, consumed by rage and desperation, she made a choice that would end her reign of terror forever. But the price of that choice would shatter what remained of Michael's family and force him to confront the darkest truth of all, that the woman who gave him life had been willing to take life from the two people he loved most of all.
Michael stood at the front door, watching through the security camera feed as Patricia pounded on the entrance. Martha Wellington and the third woman, Michael now recognized her as Diane Crawford, hung back near the fence opening. "Michael, please!" Patricia's voice was raw, desperate. "I'm your mother. You can't keep me from my family." "The police are 3 minutes away," Michael called through the intercom. "Leave now or you'll be arrested again." "Arrested? You'd have your own mother arrested?" Patricia's voice cracked. "I gave you everything, everything. I worked 3 jobs to raise you alone. I invested my inheritance in your company. And this is how you repay me?" Michael's jaw clenched. Even now, Patricia was trying to manipulate him with guilt. "You abused my pregnant wife for 8 months. You tried to steal my daughter. You destroyed your own credibility with lies." "Lies? That woman poisoned you against me." Patricia slammed her fist against the door. "She's not worthy of you, Michael. Can't you see that? She's nothing, a nobody. I was protecting you from making the biggest mistake of your life." From the bathroom, Emily could hear every word through the intercom. She sat on the floor, her hands protectively over her belly, tears streaming down her face. "You were supposed to marry someone from our world, someone with class, education, breeding, not some nurse from Oregon who saw a rich man and spread her—" "Finish that sentence and I'll never speak to you again," Michael interrupted, his voice deadly quiet. "You have 2 minutes before the police arrive. I suggest you leave." "I'm not leaving without seeing you face to face." Patricia's desperation was escalating into hysteria. "You're my son, mine. I won't let her take you from me." Michael watched as Martha Wellington approached Patricia, trying to pull her away from the door. "Patricia, this isn't working. We need to go." "No!" Patricia shoved Martha away. "This is my son, my family. I have a right." "You have no rights here," Michael said through the intercom. "A judge made that very clear." In the distance, sirens wailed. Patricia heard them too. Michael watched her face change on the camera. The desperation morphed into something darker, colder, more calculated. "Fine," said Patricia, her voice suddenly calm, eerily calm. "If I can't have my son, if I can't have my grandchild, then nobody will." She pulled something from her jacket. A gun. Michael's blood turned to ice. "Mother, don't!" "You've left me no choice." Patricia's hands shook as she aimed the gun at the door. "If that woman dies, you'll be free. You'll see I was right all along. You'll come back to me." Martha Wellington screamed and ran toward the fence. Diane Crawford stood frozen in shock. "Patricia, stop!" Diane Crawford finally found her voice. "This is insane. Put the gun down." "Insane? They're the ones who are insane, turning against family, choosing strangers over blood." Michael was already moving. He'd grabbed his own licensed firearm from the safe in his study. He wasn't going to shoot his mother, but he needed to be prepared if she found a way inside. "Emily, stay in the bathroom. Don't come out no matter what you hear." "Michael, I'm scared." "I know, but I've got this, I promise." Outside, the police cars screeched into the driveway. 4 officers emerged with weapons drawn. "Drop the weapon! Drop it now!" Patricia turned towards them, the gun still in her hand.
For a moment, Michael thought she might actually shoot at the police. "She has my son! That woman in there has poisoned my son against me! She's stealing my family!" "Ma'am, put the gun down, slowly." Patricia looked at the gun in her hand, then at the house, then back at the police. Her face crumpled. "I just wanted my family back. I just wanted things to be the way they were before she came." "Put the gun down, ma'am, slowly." Patricia dropped the gun and fell to her knees, sobbing. The officers moved in quickly, securing the weapon and handcuffing her. Michael watched through the camera as they led his mother away. She looked small, broken, nothing like the powerful, controlled woman who'd raised him. Martha Wellington and Diane Crawford were also being arrested as accomplices. Michael's hands shook as he lowered his own weapon and locked it back in the safe. Then he went to the bathroom and knocked gently. "Emily, it's over. It's safe now." The door opened slowly. Emily stood there, her face pale, her whole body trembling. "She tried to kill us," Emily whispered. "She actually tried to kill us." Michael pulled her into his arms. "But she didn't. We're safe. Our family is safe." Emily collapsed against him, crying so hard her entire body shook. Michael held her, feeling his own tears start to fall for the first time since this nightmare began. He'd lost his mother, the woman who'd raised him, the woman he'd loved and trusted for 38 years. But he'd saved his family, his real family. A police detective came to the house an hour later to take their statements. Detective Rodriguez was a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a non-nonsense demeanor. "Mrs. Patricia Carter is being charged with attempted murder along with the previous charges of assault and fraud. With the gun charges and violation of the restraining order, she's looking at 15 to 20 years in prison. Will she actually serve that time?"
Given her age and the severity of the charges, yes, she won't be eligible for parole for at least 10 years. Rodriguez looked at Emily. "Mrs. Carter, you and your baby are safe now. She can't hurt you anymore." After the detective left, Michael made Emily tea and sat with her in the living room as the sun rose. "I keep thinking about what she said, about me poisoning you against her, about me not being worthy of you." "Stop. Don't give her words any power." "But Michael, she's your mother. She raised you. She sacrificed for you. And because of me—" "Because of her own choices," Michael interrupted firmly. "Emily, my mother didn't lose me because of you. She lost me because she chose cruelty over love. She chose control over connection. She chose her own pride over my happiness." "Do you hate her now?" Michael thought about that. Did he hate Patricia? The woman who'd worked 3 jobs to raise him? The woman who'd believed in his dreams when nobody else did? "No," he said finally. "I don't hate her. I pity her. She had a chance to be part of something beautiful, our family, our daughter's life, but she couldn't let go of control long enough to just love." He took Emily's hand. "That's her tragedy, not ours." Over the next 2 weeks, the story dominated Austin news. Patricia Carter's arrest, the investigation into the Women's Wellness Foundation, the other victims coming forward. Sarah Martinez had been right. There were dozens of women who'd suffered under this network, daughters-in-law who'd been systematically abused, then labeled as mentally unstable when they fought back. Michael's foundation began reaching out to them, offering legal support, therapy, financial assistance, a chance to reclaim their lives, and in some cases, their children. One woman, Rebecca Morrison, the judge's daughter who'd called Michael that night, came to visit them at the safe house. "My sister-in-law, Jennifer, she's been in that facility for 4 years, Rebecca said, her voice thick with emotion. "Because of your case, because of the evidence you exposed, they're reviewing her commitment. She might get out. She might get her daughter back." "I'm so sorry you lost your brother," Emily said softly. Rebecca nodded, tears falling. "He couldn't live with what he'd allowed to happen, but maybe his daughter won't grow up thinking her mother abandoned her. Maybe something good can come from all this pain." The district attorney, Tom Morrison, Judge Morrison's son and Rebecca's brother, personally handled Patricia's case. He'd lost a brother to this network's cruelty. He wasn't going to let them escape justice. We have enough evidence to bring charges against 6 other women in this network, and we're investigating 3 suspicious deaths connected to daughters-in-law who threatened to expose them. My mother was involved in murder? Michael felt sick. We don't know yet, but we're going to find out. At Emily's next doctor's appointment, Dr. Chen had wonderful news. You've gained 8 pounds in 2 weeks. Your blood pressure is normal. The baby is measuring perfectly, she smiled. You're going to have a healthy baby girl, Mrs. Carter. Emily cried with relief. They decided to stay at the safe house until Emily gave birth. Michael worked remotely, letting his executive team handle the day-to-day operations of Carter Industries. His company was important, but it wasn't as important as being there for Emily every single day. 3 weeks after Patricia's arrest, Michael's lawyer called with an update. Patricia is asking to see you, Robert said. She's in county jail awaiting trial. She wants to apologize. No, Michael said immediately. I told her you'd say that, but Michael, there's something else. She's written you a letter. The guards cleared it. It's just a letter, no threats. Do you want me to send it? Michael hesitated. Part of him wanted to refuse, to cut Patricia out of his life completely and never look back. But another part, the part that had loved his mother for 38 years, needed closure. Send it. The letter arrived 2 days later. Michael waited until Emily was napping to open it. The handwriting was Patricia's, but it looked shakier than usual. Dear Michael, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to read this. But I need you to know the truth, not the truth I told the courts or the truth I told my friends, but the real truth I've been hiding even from myself. I was terrified of losing you. When your father died and left us alone, you became everything to me. My purpose, my pride, my entire world. I worked those 3 jobs not just to provide for you, but to prove that I was enough, that you didn't need a father because you had me. When you became successful, I felt like I'd won, like all those sacrifices had paid off. You were my achievement, my masterpiece. And then Emily came along. I saw how you looked at her, the same way your father used to look at me before he died, like she was your whole world, like she mattered more than anything, like she mattered more than me. I couldn't accept that. I couldn't accept being replaced, so I tried to drive her away. I told myself I was protecting you from a gold digger, that I was saving you from making a mistake, but the truth is, I was just a bitter old woman who couldn't let go of being replaced. Emily is a good person. She loves you genuinely. She never tried to take you away from me. I pushed you away all by myself through my cruelty. The baby, your daughter, she deserves better than a grandmother who only knows how to control and manipulate. She deserves to grow up surrounded by love, not the toxic need for power that destroyed me. I'm sorry, Michael. I'm sorry I hurt Emily. I'm sorry I tried to steal your daughter. I'm sorry I pointed a gun at the door behind which stood the 2 people you love most in this world. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to just be happy for you. Your mother always loved you. She just forgot how to show it without owning you. I won't ask you to visit me in prison. I won't ask you to forgive me. But please, tell Emily I'm sorry. Tell your daughter when she's old enough to understand that her grandmother wasn't always a monster. Once, a long time ago, I was just a woman who loved her son so much that it twisted into something dark and terrible. Be happy, Michael. That's all I really ever wanted for you, even if I had a terrible way of showing it. Your mother, Patricia. Michael read the letter 3 times, then he folded it carefully and put it in his desk drawer. He would never show it to Emily. Some apologies, no matter how genuine, don't undo the damage. But he would keep it, as a reminder of how love, without boundaries and respect, can become the most destructive force in the world. As Michael sat alone with his mother's confession, he realized that the story wasn't about good versus evil. It was about love that had curdled into possession and sacrifice that morphed into control.
Patricia Carter gave him life, but Emily had taught him how to truly live, and soon their daughter would be born into a home free of manipulation, a home built on genuine love instead of toxic need for power.
2 months later, Emily went into labor. It was 3 in the morning when she shook Michael awake. "It's time." They'd planned everything meticulously. The hospital bag was packed, Dr. Chen was on call, the route to the hospital was mapped with 3 backup options. What they hadn't planned for was the panic. "What if something goes wrong?" Emily gasped as another contraction hit. "What if Patricia somehow—" "Patricia is in jail. She can't hurt you." Michael helped Emily to the car, his own hands shaking. "And nothing is going to go wrong. Dr. Chen said you're perfectly healthy. The baby is perfect. Everything is going to be fine." But Michael's mind was racing with worst-case scenarios as he drove. What if Emily needed an emergency C-section? What if there were complications from the months of malnutrition Patricia had inflicted on them? What if the stress had damaged the baby in ways they couldn't see? Dr. Chen met them at the hospital entrance with a wheelchair. "Right on time. Your daughter is eager to meet you." The labor lasted 8 hours. 8 hours of Emily in pain, squeezing Michael's hand so hard he thought she might break bones. 8 hours of watching monitors and listening to the baby's heartbeat and praying that everything would be okay. And then, at 11:23 in the morning, their daughter was born. The moment Michael heard that first cry, he burst into tears. "She's perfect," Dr. Chen said, placing the baby on Emily's chest. "Completely healthy. 7 pounds, 4 ounces, 10 fingers, 10 toes. Perfect APGAR scores." Emily was sobbing and laughing at the same time as she held their daughter. "She's here. She's really here. She's safe." Michael touched her daughter's tiny hand, and she immediately gripped his finger with surprising strength. "What should we name her?" Emily asked, looking up at Michael with exhausted joy. They'd discussed names for months, but never quite decided. Patricia had been lobbying for Patricia Carter Jr. before her arrest. Emily's mother wanted Sarah after Emily's grandmother. But looking at her daughter's face, Michael knew exactly what her name should be. "Hope," he said softly. "Her name is Hope because she represents everything good that came from surviving something terrible." Emily's eyes filled with fresh tears. "Hope Carter. It's perfect." The first few days at home with Hope were chaotic. Neither of them knew what they were doing. Hope cried at seemingly random times, diaper changes were adventures, sleep was a distant memory. But it was beautiful chaos, pure chaos, chaos filled with love instead of fear. Emily was a natural mother, despite Patricia's months of trying to convince her otherwise. She was patient when Hope fussed, gentle when Hope needed comfort, strong when Michael was too exhausted to function. "You're amazing," you told her one night at 3 in the morning as Emily nursed Hope. "Patricia was so wrong about you. I keep waiting for her to show up. I know she's in jail, I know she can't get to us, but I still have nightmares about her taking Hope." "She will never touch Hope. I promise you that." But Patricia tried. 2 weeks after Hope's birth, they received a legal petition from Patricia's lawyer. She was requesting grandmother's visitation rights. "Is she serious?" Emily's voice shook as she read the document. "She tried to kill us, and now she wants visitation?" "She won't get it," Michael's lawyer Robert assured them. "No judge in Texas would grant visitation rights to someone who committed attempted murder against the child's parents. This is just her way of trying to maintain some control from prison." The hearing was brief. Judge Morrison, the same judge who denied Patricia's guardianship petition, took one look at the request and denied it on the spot. "Mrs. Patricia Carter, you have no rights to this child. You are a danger to this family. This petition is denied, and I'm filing an order that you may never petition for custody or visitation again. This matter is closed." Patricia attended the hearing via video from jail. Michael couldn't help but look at her. She'd aged,
Her hair was gray now, no longer dyed the perfect auburn she'd maintained for years. She wore an orange jumpsuit instead of designer clothes. Her face was lined with stress and regret. When she saw Hope in Emily's arms, Patricia's composure finally broke. She started crying on camera. "I just wanted to see her. Just once, please." "No," Judge Morrison said. "You forfeited that right when you pointed a gun at their parents." As the video feed cut off, Michael felt nothing. No pity, no anger, no sadness. Just a vast emptiness where his love for his mother used to be. Meanwhile, the investigation into the Women's Wellness Foundation uncovered even darker truths. Tom Morrison, the district attorney, called Michael with an update. "We found evidence linking Patricia's network to 2 deaths. One was ruled a suicide, but our forensic team found evidence suggesting it was staged. The other was a car accident that we now believe was deliberately caused." My mother was involved in murder? Michael felt sick. "We're still building the case, but yes, it looks like Patricia and several others in the network conspired to eliminate daughter-in-laws who threatened to expose them." Tom paused. "Michael, I need you to understand something. Your mother wasn't just a controlling narcissist. She was part of an organized criminal conspiracy that lasted for over a decade." Michael looked at Hope sleeping peacefully in her bassinet. His mother, the woman who'd raised him with such dedication, had been willing to kill to maintain control. What happens now? Patricia's facing additional murder charges.
And lifted her high, making her squeal with joy. He realized something profound. Patricia had spent decades building power and control, but she died alone in a cell with nothing. Michael had lost his mother, lost the illusion of the perfect family he'd thought he had, but he'd gained something infinitely more valuable. He'd gained a real family, built on truth instead of lies, on respect instead of control, on love that empowered instead of imprisoned. "What are you thinking about?" Emily asked, sitting beside him as Hope played with her birthday presents. "I'm thinking about how Patricia was right about one thing. A family is the most important thing in the world. She just forgot that family isn't about ownership, it's about love." Emily took his hand. "Do you miss her, the version of her that raised you?" "Every day," I admitted. "I miss the mother I thought I had, but I'm grateful I discovered the truth before she could hurt Hope the way she hurt you." That night, after Hope was asleep and the house was quiet, Michael took out Patricia's letter from prison, the one he'd never shown Emily. He read it one last time, then placed it in a fire-safe box in his study. Hope would never meet her paternal grandmother. She would never know the woman who'd tried to destroy their family before she was born. But someday, when Hope was older, if she asked about Patricia, Michael would tell her the truth. He would tell her about the woman who raised him with dedication but couldn't let him grow beyond her control. He would tell her about the network of powerful women who'd used their influence to destroy families. He would tell her about the mother who survived months of abuse and emerged stronger. And he would tell her the most important lesson of all, that love without respect is not love at all. It's just control wearing a mask. 5 years after Patricia Carter was sent to prison, the Women's Wellness Foundation was permanently shut down and its remaining members faced justice. Emily Carter's foundation had helped over 200 families escape similar situations. Hope was growing up healthy, happy, and completely unaware of the darkness that had almost consumed her family before she was born. And Michael had learned the hardest lesson of his life, that sometimes protecting the people you love means cutting ties with the people who gave you life. Hope was 5 years old when she first asked about her paternal grandmother. They were looking through old photo albums. Emily's family photos were filled with memories, birthdays, holidays, normal family moments. But when Hope looked at Michael's family photos, she noticed something. "Daddy, where's your mommy?" Hope asked, her small finger pointing to a photo of young Michael, alone with his father. Michael and Emily exchanged glances. They'd known this conversation would come eventually. They'd prepared for it with their family therapist, Dr. Lisa Rodriguez, who'd been helping them process the trauma for years. "My daddy died when I was young," Michael said gently, pulling Hope onto his lap. "And my mommy, she's not in our lives anymore." "Why not?" Hope's innocent eyes were full of curiosity, not judgment. "Because she made some very bad choices that hurt people I love," Michael said carefully. "Sometimes grown-ups do things that are so wrong we can't have them in our family anymore." "Did she hurt Mommy?" Emily stiffened slightly, but Michael squeezed her hand reassuringly. "Yes, sweetheart, she hurt your mommy very much before you were born." Hope thought about this for a moment, then hugged Emily fiercely. "I'm glad Mommy is okay now." "Me too, baby," Emily whispered, her eyes filling with tears. That night, after Hope was asleep, Emily found Michael in his study, looking at old photos of Patricia. Pictures from when he was young, when she'd been the loving single mother working multiple jobs to provide for him. "It's okay to miss who you thought she was," Emily said softly, sitting beside him. "I don't miss her," Michael said. "I miss the idea of her, the mother I thought I had." He put the photos away. But that person never really existed. It was always conditional, always about control. The trial had revealed even more disturbing truths about Patricia's past. Investigators had discovered that Michael's father hadn't died of a heart attack, as Patricia had always claimed. He died of a medication overdose. And while it was ruled accidental at the time, new evidence suggested Patricia had been systematically over-medicating him for months before his death. She wanted to be a widow, to have complete control over Michael without a husband interfering. The district attorney couldn't prove murder. Too much time had passed, evidence had been destroyed, but the pattern was clear. Patricia's need for control hadn't started with Emily. It had been there all along, hiding behind the mask of a devoted mother and wife. "Sometimes I wonder what Hope's life would have been like if I hadn't come home early that day, if I hadn't discovered what Patricia was doing." "Don't," Emily said firmly. "We can't think about alternate timelines. We can only be grateful for the one we're in." Meanwhile, the impact of exposing Patricia's network continued to ripple through Austin's elite society. 6 more women had been convicted of various crimes related to the conspiracy. The Women's Wellness Foundation's assets were seized and liquidated, with the funds going to support the victims. But more importantly, family courts across Texas had implemented new safeguards to prevent similar abuse in the future. Judge Morrison had spearheaded legislation requiring mandatory oversight for guardianship petitions involving grandparents. Any accusation of mental instability now required evaluation by multiple independent psychiatrists, not just friends of the petitioner. "You changed the system," Tom Morrison told Michael during a meeting about the Emily Carter Foundation. "Patricia's victims didn't suffer for nothing. Their stories reformed family law across the state." The foundation had grown beyond Michael's initial vision. They now operated 3 safe houses for women escaping abusive family situations. They employed a team of lawyers who specialized in grandparent abuse cases. They'd helped 500 families in 5 years. And they'd reunited 37 children with mothers who'd been wrongfully committed or had custody wrongfully terminated. Jennifer Morrison, Rebecca's sister-in-law, now worked for the foundation. She led support groups for women who'd survived similar abuse. "I lost 5 years with my daughter," Jennifer said during one foundation event.
5 years I'll never get back, but I can help make sure other mothers don't lose their children to controlling grandparents who think they own their grandchildren. Jennifer's daughter, now 10, is thriving. The therapy was difficult. 5 years of being told her mother was too sick to visit did damage, but slowly their relationship was healing. She calls me Mom now, Jennifer told Emily with tears of joy. Emily hugged her, understanding the weight of that small word. On Hope's 5th birthday, something unexpected happened. A letter arrived addressed to Hope Carter. The return address was the state correctional facility where Patricia was serving her life sentence. Michael held the letter like it might explode. "She's not allowed to contact us, the restraining order." "Check with the prison," Emily said, her voice tight with fear. "Make sure this went through proper channels." Michael called immediately. The warden explained that Patricia had petitioned for one-time permission to write a letter to her granddaughter. Because it was just a letter with no requests for contact or visits, the prison had allowed it. "Should we read it?" Emily asked. "Or should we just destroy it?" Michael looked at the envelope with Hope's name written in Patricia's handwriting. Neat, precise.
Had doubled in value. She knew they were thriving without her, and that knowledge, more than the prison walls, was her real punishment. On Hope's 7th birthday, she asked if she could donate her birthday money to Mommy's Foundation. "I want to help kids whose grandmas are mean like Daddy's was," Hope explained, with the blunt honesty of childhood. Emily and Michael looked at each other with pride and heartbreak. Their daughter was growing up, knowing the truth, but not carrying the trauma. She knew her family had survived something terrible and chosen to help others instead of hiding in shame. "That's a beautiful idea, sweetheart," Emily said. "We'll match whatever you donate." Hope donated $200 of birthday money, a fortune to a 7-year-old. Michael matched it with $50,000 to the foundation. The local news story covered the story. Young Hope Carter, daughter of tech billionaire Michael Carter and abuse survivor Emily Carter, continues the family's commitment to protecting families from grandparent abuse. Patricia saw the news story in the prison common room. She watched her granddaughter on television, so bright and happy and loved. And for the first time in 7 years, Patricia felt something other than anger or regret. She felt grateful. Grateful that Emily had been strong enough to survive. Grateful that Michael had been brave enough to choose his family over his mother. Grateful that Hope would never know the poison of conditional love that had defined Patricia's relationship with Michael. That night, Patricia wrote one final letter, not to Hope, not to Michael, but to Emily. The letter took her 3 weeks to write. She revised it dozens of times, trying to find words adequate for what she needed to say. When it was finished, she sent it through the proper channels, knowing Emily might never read it or might throw it away unopened. But some words need to be said, even if they're never heard. And some apologies need to be offered, even if they're never accepted. Patricia's final letter to Emily would be her last attempt to acknowledge the truth, that the strongest woman in the story was never the controlling grandmother with power and money. It was the young nurse from Oregon who refused to let cruelty win. The letter arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. Emily was in her home office, reviewing applications for the foundation's newest safe house location, when Michael brought in the mail. "This is addressed to you," Michael said carefully, showing her the return address. "From the state prison." Emily's hands froze on her keyboard. "Patricia? I can throw it away if you want. You don't owe her anything, not even your time." Emily stared at the envelope for a long moment. 7 years had passed since that terrible night when Patricia had pointed a gun at their door. 7 years of healing and building a life free from fear. Did she really want to invite Patricia's voice back into her head? I need to read it, Emily finally decided. Not because she deserves my attention, but because I need to know I'm strong enough to face whatever she has to say. Michael nodded. I'll be right here if you need me. Emily opened the letter with trembling fingers. Patricia's handwriting was shakier now, probably from age and the stress of prison life, but the words were clear. Dear Emily, I debated whether to write this letter for months. You owe me nothing, not your time, not your attention, certainly not your forgiveness. But I needed to say these things, even if you throw this letter away unread, even if you burn it, even if you laugh at the pitiful attempt of a dying old woman to ease my conscience. I'm dying, Emily. Pancreatic cancer. The doctors give me 6 months, maybe less, and I find myself with a burning need to speak truth before I go. For 7 years, I've told myself stories to make what I did to you more bearable. I told myself I was trying to protect Michael, that I truly believed you were unstable, that I was acting from love, however misguided. But those were lies I told myself to sleep at night. The truth is simpler and uglier. I hated you because Michael loved you. You were young, beautiful, kind and genuine, everything I'd stopped being decades ago. You loved Michael without wanting to own him. You didn't need to control him to feel secure in his love. And I couldn't stand it. I'd spent 38 years as the center of Michael's world. His success was my success. His achievements were my validation. I'd sacrificed so much for him, or so I told myself, that he owed me his devotion forever. Then you came along and loved him better than I ever had. Loved him in a way that made him grow instead of keeping him dependent. Loved him freely instead of conditionally. You were everything I should have been and wasn't. So I tried to destroy you. I told myself I was protecting my son from a gold digger, but that was a lie. You never asked Michael for anything. You loved him when he was just a programmer with a dream, before the billions, before the mansion. I told myself you were unstable, but that was a lie too. You were healthy and strong. I manufactured your instability through months of systematic abuse because I needed you to be broken to justify my cruelty. I told myself I was thinking of my grandchild's welfare, but that was the biggest lie of all. I didn't care about Hope's welfare. I cared about controlling who raised her, about making sure my bloodline was raised according to my standards, not yours. Every terrible thing I did to you, starving you, isolating you, hitting you, threatening you, trying to have you committed, came from my own insecurity and need for control. You did nothing to deserve any of it, except have the audacity to love my son genuinely. I've had 7 years in this cell to think about the moment I pointed that gun at your door. 7 years to relive the complete insanity of being willing to murder you and Michael to prevent losing control of my fantasy of our family. In that moment, I wasn't a mother protecting my son. I was a monster willing to destroy everything rather than accept that I was no longer the center of Michael's universe. Emily, you survived something that broke dozens of other women. I know about the others now, the women my network destroyed. The daughters-in-law who ended up in psychiatric facilities were dead because they weren't as strong as you. You survived me at my worst. You protected Hope before she was born. You found the strength to wait for Michael to discover the truth instead of giving up and leaving. You're the hero in this story.
No, it makes you someone who grieved the death of his mother years ago, when she chose to become a monster. Emily squeezed his hand. You lost your mother the day you discovered what she was doing to me,
This is just the final chapter closing. Should we tell Hope? Emily considered this carefully. Eventually, but not today. Today, let's just be grateful we're all safe and together. That evening, they had a quiet family dinner. Hope chattered about her day at school, excited about a science project on butterflies. She had no idea that her grandmother had died that morning. And watching his daughter's innocent joy, Michael realized Emily was right. He'd grieved for his mother years ago. This was just the epilogue to a story that had already ended. 3 days later, a package arrived from Patricia's lawyer. Inside was a handwritten will and a small box. The will was simple. Patricia had almost nothing left. Her assets had been seized to compensate her victims. But what little remained, she left to the Emily Carter Foundation. "I can't accept this," Emily said immediately. "I don't want her money." "It's not much," the lawyer explained over the phone. "About $30,000 from a life insurance policy that paid out despite her conviction. She specified it should go to the foundation to help other women escape abuse." Emily looked at Michael, conflicted. "Think of it this way," Michael said gently. "Patricia destroyed lives. This money will help rebuild them. It's fitting." Emily finally agreed, and the money was donated to the foundation in Patricia's name, a permanent reminder that even those who cause pain can, in the end, contribute to healing. The box contained something more personal, a letter addressed to Michael, and a small jewelry case. Michael opened the letter first. "Dear Michael, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Good. I've been dead to you for years anyway. This is just making it official. In this box is your grandmother's wedding ring. My mother wore it for 50 years. I wore it for the 12 years I was married to your father. I'd always planned to give it to your wife when you got married, but I never did because I couldn't stand the thought of Emily wearing it. That was petty and cruel. The ring deserves better than to sit in a prison property room, and Emily deserves better than the spite I showed her. Give her the ring, Michael. Tell her it represents 5 generations of Carter women, strong women who loved their families. Tell her she's the best of us, better than I ever was. And tell her I'm sorry I never said that to her face. Your mother, for whatever that's worth." Patricia opened the jewelry case. Inside was a simple but beautiful diamond ring, Art Deco style, elegant and timeless. He'd never seen his mother without this ring. She'd worn it every day of his childhood, even long after his father died. It had been as much a part of her as her auburn hair and perfect posture. "What is it?" Emily asked. Michael showed her the ring in the letter. Emily stared at the ring like it might bite her. "I can't wear that. It's hers. It was my grandmother's first, and my great-grandmother's before that." Michael took the ring from the case. Patricia chose to be cruel, but this ring existed before her cruelty and outlasted it. It's just a ring, Emily. It doesn't carry her sins. "I don't know. You don't have to decide now. Just don't throw it away. Maybe someday Hope will want it, a connection to her father's family that isn't tainted by Patricia's choices." Emily agreed to keep the ring in the safe, though she couldn't imagine ever wearing it. Weeks passed. The foundation continued its work. Hope continued growing, bright and happy and loved. Life moved forward without Patricia's shadow looming over them. Then, 3 months after Patricia's death, something unexpected happened. Emily received a visitor at the foundation office, a woman in her 70s, impeccably dressed, with kind eyes and a nervous manner. "Mrs. Carter, my name is Dorothy Chen. I was your mother-in-law's college roommate 50 years ago." Emily stiffened immediately. "If you're here to defend her—" No, I'm here to apologize." Dorothy sat down without being invited, her hands shaking. "I watched Patricia become the woman that hurt you, and I did nothing to stop it." Emily slowly sat across from her. "I don't understand." "Patricia wasn't always that way," Dorothy began softly.
When I met her in college, she was kind, generous, full of dreams about becoming a doctor and helping people. She was one of the best people I knew. What happened? Michael's father happened, Richard Carter. Dorothy's expression darkened. He was charming and successful, but he was also controlling. He convinced Patricia to drop out of medical school when they married, told her that a wife shouldn't outshine her husband, that she was supposed to support his career. Emily listened, fascinated despite herself. Patricia tried to be happy as a housewife, but I could see the light dying in her eyes. She'd given up her dreams for Richard, and he barely noticed. He worked constantly, traveling for business, having affairs. Then Richard had a heart attack when Michael was 12, and Patricia finally got her freedom. But instead of reclaiming her dreams, she poured everything into Michael. Emily said, understanding dawning. Exactly. Michael became her second chance, her achievement, her purpose. She'd given up her own dreams for a man who didn't appreciate her, so she was determined to live through her son. Dorothy's eyes filled with tears. I watched it happen, and
Wounds. But the final chapter of their story would come from the most unexpected source, Hope herself, who would teach them all that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and that breaking cycles means understanding where they begin.
Hope was 10 years old when she found the letters. She'd been looking for birthday decorations in Michael's study's closet when she knocked over a box. Papers scattered everywhere, and among them were 3 envelopes marked with prison return addresses. "Daddy?" Hope called, gathering the papers carefully. "I found some letters." Michael came into the study and froze when he saw what Hope was holding. He and Emily had always planned to show Hope those letters someday, but someday had always felt safely far away. Not anymore. "Those are from your grandmother," Michael said carefully, sitting down beside Hope. "Your grandmother Patricia." Hope's eyes went wide. She knew the basic story, that Daddy's mommy had been mean to Mommy before Hope was born, and that's why Hope had never met her. But at 10 years old, the story had always felt abstract, like something from a movie rather than real life. "Can I read them?" Michael and Emily exchanged glances. They'd discussed this scenario with Dr. Rodriguez, their family therapist. The consensus had been that when Hope found out about Patricia, they would answer her questions honestly but age-appropriately. "Let me and Mommy read through them first. Then we'll talk about whether you're ready to read them." That evening, after Hope was in bed, Michael and Emily reread all 3 letters. Patricia's letter apologizing to Michael, the letter to Hope that had arrived on her 6th birthday, and the final letter to Emily written before Patricia's death. "She's going to have questions," Emily said. "Hard questions." "Then we'll answer them honestly," Michael replied. "Hope deserves to know the truth." The next morning, Michael and Emily sat Hope down in the living room. "Your grandmother Patricia was a complicated person," Michael began. "She did some wonderful things when I was young. She worked very hard to take care of me after my father died. She supported my dreams and helped me build my company. But she also did some terrible things," Emily continued gently. "When she got older, she became very controlling. She wanted to control your daddy's life, even though he was a grown man. And when I came along and your daddy loved me, your grandmother felt threatened." "Why?" Hope asked, her young face serious. "Because she'd forgotten how to be happy for herself. She only knew how to be happy through your daddy's life. So when he started building his own family with me, she felt like she was losing him." Emily chose her words carefully. "And instead of letting him go with love, she tried to hurt me to push me away." "What did she do?" Michael and Emily had prepared for this question, but it was still hard to answer. "She was mean to your mommy in a lot of ways," Michael said. "She said cruel things. She tried to make Mommy feel unwelcome in our home. She even tried to convince me that Mommy wasn't a good person. But the worst thing," Emily added quietly, "was that she tried to have me taken away so she could raise you instead. She wanted to be your mommy, not me." Hope's eyes filled with tears. "That's not fair. You're my mommy." "I know, sweetheart, and your daddy figured out what was happening and stopped her. That's why your grandmother had to leave and never came back." "Is she in jail?" "Yes, she was,
but she died a few years ago. Michael showed Hope the photo of young Patricia. This was your grandmother when she was younger, before she made all those bad choices. She was smart and kind and full of dreams. Hope studied the photo carefully. She looks happy. She was, but she made choices that led her away from happiness. She gave up her own dreams to live through other people, and when that didn't work, she became angry and controlling. Could that happen to anyone? Hope asked, the question showing wisdom beyond her years. Yes, Emily said honestly. That's why it's so important to have your own dreams in your own life, to love people without trying to control them, to let people you love be free to make their own choices. Hope thought about this for a long moment. Then she asked, "Can I read the letters now?" Michael hesitated. Some of them have adult language and concepts that might be hard to understand. "I'm 10. I can handle it," Hope said with the stubborn determination she'd inherited from both parents. They let her read Patricia's letter to her, the one written when Hope was 6. They watched Hope's face carefully as she read, ready to comfort or explain. When Hope finished, she had tears in her eyes. She said Mommy was extraordinary. She did, Emily confirmed. She said she was proud of Daddy for choosing us over her. Yes. And she said I should never visit her or write to her. Hope looked up. But why? If she knew she was wrong, why didn't she want to meet me? Because sometimes people do things so terrible that they can't be undone. Your grandmother hurt Mommy very badly. Meeting you would have made her feel better about herself, but it wouldn't have helped you or Mommy. She understood that. Hope wiped her tears. I think I'm sad about someone I never met. It's okay to be sad, Emily said, pulling Hope into a hug. You can be sad about the grandmother you could have had if she'd made different choices. That's a real loss, even if you never knew her. Over the next few weeks, Hope asked more questions. Some were easy to answer, others required careful thoughts and consultation with Dr. Rodriguez. Did you hate her? Hope asked Emily one day. For a long time, yes, Emily admitted. What she did to me was hateful, but now I don't hate her anymore. I pity her. She had a chance to be part of something beautiful, and she chose to destroy it instead. Do you think she loved Daddy? I think she loved the idea of Daddy. She loved having control over his life, but real love means letting people be free. She never learned that. Hope digested this. Then she asked the question Emily had been dreading. Mommy, do you ever worry you might become like her? That you might try to control me too much? Emily felt like she'd been punched in the chest. It was the question that haunted her nightmares, that somehow Patricia's poison had infected her, that she might unconsciously repeat the cycle of control. Every day, Emily admitted honestly, every single day I worry about that. That's why Daddy and I see Dr. Rodriguez regularly. That's why we talk to you about your feelings and respect your choices, even when we don't agree with them. We're very, very careful not to make you feel controlled. You're nothing like her, Hope said firmly. You let me choose my own clothes, even when I pick weird combinations. You let me quit ballet when I didn't like it. You listen when I talk about my feelings. Grandmother Patricia didn't do any of those things with Daddy. Emily started crying. Thank you for saying that. It's true. Hope hugged her mother fiercely. You're a great mom, the best mom, and I'm glad Daddy picked you instead of listening to her. That conversation led to a family decision. They would be completely transparent with Hope about Patricia's story, age appropriately, because secrets and shame perpetuated cycles of abuse. Hope began attending some foundation events with Emily, meeting other children whose grandparents had tried to control or hurt their families. It happens to other people too? Hope asked in wonder after meeting a girl her age whose grandmother had tried to kidnap her. Unfortunately, yes, Emily explained. That's why our foundation exists, to help families like ours. Hope became determined to help. She started a peer support group for kids with complicated grandparents. She created artwork for the foundation's fundraising events. She even gave a speech at the foundation's annual gala when she was 12. My grandmother tried to hurt my mom before I was born, Hope said confidently into the microphone, hundreds of wealthy donors watching. She wanted to control my family because she couldn't control her own life, but my parents stopped her, and now we help other families stop controlling grandparents too.
The speech raised over $1 million for the foundation. Michael watched his daughter speak with such poise and purpose, and he felt Patricia's absence not as a loss, but a relief. Hope was growing up free from the toxic control that had defined his own childhood. On Hope's 13th birthday, she made an unusual request. "I want to visit Grandmother Patricia's grave." "She doesn't have one," Michael explained. "She donated her body to science. There's no grave to visit." "Then can we make one, like a memorial? I want a place to, I don't know, say things to her." Emily and Michael discussed it with Dr. Rodriguez. "This is actually very healthy," Dr. Rodriguez explained. "Hope is seeking closure for a relationship that never existed. Creating a memorial space could help her process that loss." They decided to plant a tree in their backyard, a Japanese maple, beautiful but requiring careful pruning to thrive, a living metaphor for how relationships need boundaries to be healthy. At the tree planting ceremony, Hope read a letter she'd written. "Dear Grandmother Patricia, I never met you, but you've been part of my life anyway. You're the reason Mom is so strong. You're the reason Daddy knows how to choose love over obligation. You're the reason I understand that love means freedom, not control."
I wish you'd made different choices. I wish I could have known the version of you from that college photo, the happy woman with dreams. But you made your choices, and now I get to make mine. I choose to be kind without being controlling. I choose to love without possessing. I choose to let the people I love be free. Thank you for teaching me what not to be. Hope. As they finished planting the tree, Emily felt a weight lift from her shoulders. For 13 years, Patricia had been a ghost haunting their family. But now, finally, Patricia was just a memory, a cautionary tale, a lesson learned. Not a threat, not a source of fear, just gone. That night, Emily took Patricia's ring out of the safe for the first time in years. She looked at it in the light, studying the Art Deco design. "I think I'm ready to wear this," Emily said to Michael. "Are you sure? It's not Patricia's ring. It's your grandmother's ring, your great-grandmother's ring. It represents the strong women in your family who knew how to love properly." Emily slipped it on her finger. It fit perfectly. Patricia was an aberration. The rest of the Carter women were good people. I want to honor them, not her. Michael pulled Emily close. "My great-grandmother would have loved you." "Tell me about her." "She was a suffragette, fought for women's right to vote. She married my great-grandfather, but never gave up her own identity or dreams. She had 5 children and still managed to get a law degree at age 45. Michael smiled at the memory of stories his grandmother had told him. She would have despised what Patricia became. "Then I'll wear this ring for her, and for your grandmother, and for all the Carter women who knew that strength means empowering others, not controlling them." As Emily wore the ring that connected her to generations of strong Carter women, she understood that she wasn't just breaking Patricia's cycle of abuse, she was reclaiming a longer, healthier legacy. And Hope, watching her parents heal and grow, learned the most important lesson of all, that we are not defined by the worst things done to us or by us, but by how we choose to rise above them. The story of Patricia Carter was ending not with bitterness, but with wisdom hard-won through suffering, and survived with love.
5 years later, Hope was 18 and preparing for college. She'd been accepted to multiple prestigious universities, but surprised everyone by choosing to attend the University of Texas at Austin.
I want to stay close to the foundation, Hope explained. I want to keep working with families while I study psychology. I want to understand why people like Grandmother Patricia become the way they did. Emily felt immense pride mixed with concern. You don't have to dedicate your life to fixing what she broke. I'm not, Hope said confidently. I'm dedicating my life to preventing other people from breaking in the first place. That's different. Hope had grown into a remarkable young woman, confident but not arrogant, strong but compassionate. She volunteered at the foundation every week, mentoring younger children whose families were escaping controlling grandparents. One of her mentees was a girl named Sophie, whose grandmother had tried to gain custody by claiming Sophie's mother was an unfit parent, the exact same playbook Patricia had used. "How did you stop being angry?" Sophie asked Hope during one of their sessions. "My grandmother almost destroyed my family. How do you not hate her?" Hope thought carefully before answering. "I decided that hating her would give her more power over my life than she deserves. She's gone. She can't hurt anyone anymore. Being angry would just hurt me. But doesn't she deserve your anger? Maybe, but I deserve peace more than she deserves my anger." Hope pulled out a photo of young Patricia. "This is what my grandmother looked like before she made terrible choices. She was happy once. She had dreams. Something happened to her that turned her bitter and controlling. That's sad. It is, but it's also a warning. If I hold on to anger and bitterness, I might become like her someday. So I choose to feel sad about what she could have been, learn from her mistakes, and move forward." Sophie looked at the photo for a long time. "Do you think my grandmother was happy once too?" "Probably. Most controlling people are. They just forgot how to be happy for themselves, so they tried to control others to feel powerful." "I don't want to become like that." "Then don't," Hope said simply. "Make different choices. Be brave enough to create your own happiness instead of trying to steal it from others." Watching Hope mentor Sophie, Emily felt overwhelming gratitude. Her daughter had taken the worst thing that almost happened to their family and transformed it into wisdom that helped others. Patricia's attempt to destroy their family had failed so completely that it had actually made them stronger. That summer, the foundation celebrated its 20th anniversary, 2 decades of helping families escape controlling grandparents. Over 3,000 families served, hundreds of children reunited with parents who'd been wrongfully committed or had custody wrongfully terminated. The event was held at a luxury hotel in downtown Austin. Donors, volunteers, families they'd helped, and media all attended. Emily gave the keynote speech. 20 years ago, I was a young pregnant woman being systematically abused by my mother-in-law. She controlled what I ate, where I went, who I talked to. She hit me. She tried to have me committed to a psychiatric facility. She tried to steal my baby before she was even born. The audience was silent, hanging on every word. I survived because my husband discovered what was happening and chose our family over his mother. But thousands of women don't survive. They lose their children. They lose their sanity. Some lose their lives. Emily gestured to the audience. Half of you in this room have experienced what I experienced. Grandparents who used love as a weapon, who confused control with care, who destroyed families in the name of protection. Heads nodded throughout the crowd. The other half of you are here because you want to prevent this from happening to others. You understand that family abuse isn't always husband against wife or parent against child. Sometimes it's grandmother against daughter-in-law, mother-in-law against son-in-law, grandparent against grandchild. Emily paused, letting that sink in. My mother-in-law is dead now. She died in prison, alone, full of regrets, but her legacy lives on in this foundation. We've taken her cruelty and transformed it into compassion. We've taken her control and transformed it into empowerment. We've taken her abuse and transformed it into healing. The audience erupted in applause. But we can't stop there, Emily continued, because for every family we save, there are 10 more suffering in silence.
For every grandmother we stop, there are dozens more who haven't crossed the line yet but are heading that direction. Emily clicked to the next slide, showing statistics about elder involvement in family court cases. This year, we're launching a new initiative, the Prevention Project. We're going to work with therapists, social workers, and family courts to identify at-risk grandparents before they become abusers. We're going to offer counseling, support groups, and education about healthy boundaries. She clicked to a photo of young Patricia. This was my mother-in-law at 22. She was kind, brilliant, full of dreams. Something happened between this photo and the woman who abused me. We're going to figure out what that something is and stop it before it ruins more lives. After the speech, Emily was approached by dozens of people with stories eerily similar to hers. My mother-in-law did the same thing, but I didn't have security footage. I couldn't prove it. I lost custody of my son for 3 years. My husband's mother tried to have me deported when she found out I was undocumented. She said I was using her son for a green card, even though we'd been married for 8 years. My grandmother tried to convince my parents I was being abused by my other grandmother. She wanted full custody. It took years to prove she was lying. Story after story, pain after pain, all variations on the same theme, control disguised as love. Emily listened to each one, took notes, collected contact information. Each story would inform the Foundation's work. Each survivor would help shape prevention programs. As the event wound down, Hope found Emily by the window, looking out at the Austin skyline. "You did good, Mom," Hope said, hugging her from behind. "We did good. This foundation exists because of what happened to us. We turned our pain into purpose. Do you ever wonder what Grandmother Patricia would see if she could see this?" Emily considered the question. "I think part of her would be horrified that her crimes led to all this exposure of her network. But I think another part, the part that was once that bright-eyed college student, would be proud that something good came from her mistakes. Do you forgive her?" It was the question Emily had been asking herself for 20 years. "I don't know if forgive is the right word," Emily said slowly. "I understand her better now. I know she was a victim before she became an abuser. I know she was probably mentally ill and never got treatment. I know she was a product of her generation. Women taught their only value came from their children. But that doesn't excuse what she did. No, it explains it, but it doesn't excuse it." Emily turned to face her daughter. "I've let go of the anger. I've stopped having nightmares. I don't flinch anymore when older women speak to me sharply. So maybe that's a kind of forgiveness. Or maybe it's just moving forward." "I think it's healing," Hope said softly, "and I think you've healed really beautifully." That night, Emily and Michael sat in their bedroom, looking through old photos. Photos from their wedding, where Patricia had smiled for the cameras, probably already plotting against Emily. Photos from when Emily was pregnant, her face showing the strain that Michael hadn't noticed at the time. Photos from Hope's first birthday, the first celebration without Patricia's shadow hanging over them. "Do you have any regrets about how it all ended?" Emily thought about it. "I regret that Hope never got to have a good grandmother on your side. I regret that you lost your mother. I regret that Patricia wasted the last years of her life in prison instead of getting therapy and maybe healing. But I don't regret the life we built. I don't regret fighting back, and I don't regret the foundation and all the good it's done." Emily leaned against Michael. "You're the strongest person I've ever known. I'm the person who refused to let your mother break me. That's different from strong. That's just stubborn." Patricia always said I was stubborn. Turns out she was right. Your stubbornness saved our family. And your willingness to see the truth, to believe me over her, to choose us. Emily took Michael's hand. We saved each other.
The next morning, Emily received a surprise visitor at the Foundation office. Dorothy Chen, Patricia's college roommate, now in her late 70s and moving slowly with a cane. "Mrs. Carter, I heard your speech last night. It was broadcast on the Foundation's website." Dorothy sat down carefully. "I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you years ago." "What is it?" "I wasn't just Patricia's college roommate. I was her best friend, and I watched her husband abuse her for years." Dorothy's hands shook on her cane. "Not physical abuse, psychological. Richard tore her down every day, told her she was stupid for wanting to be a doctor, told her she should be grateful he married her, made her feel worthless." Emily felt her chest tighten. "When Richard died, I thought Patricia would finally be free, but instead she transferred all that need for control and validation onto Michael. She'd been controlled for so long that controlling became the only way she knew how to relate to people." Dorothy wiped her eyes. "I should have gotten her help, should have insisted she see a therapist, should have done something before she hurt you." "It's not your fault," Emily said gently. "Patricia made her own choices. But I enabled her by staying silent, just like I stayed silent when Richard abused her. I was too much of a coward to stand up to either of them." Dorothy pulled out an old photo album. "I brought this for you. Photos of Patricia throughout the years, so Hope can see that Patricia was a real person, not just a monster in a story." Emily flipped through the album. Photos of Patricia as a bright-eyed student, as a new bride, her smile not quite reaching her eyes, as a young mother, holding baby Michael with a mixture of love and desperation, as an older woman, her face hardening year by year. "You can see it happening, the light going out." "Yes, and I watched it happen and did nothing. I'll die with that regret. But maybe these photos will help you and Hope understand that Patricia wasn't born a monster. She was made into one, choice by choice, year by year." After Dorothy left, Emily sat with those photos for a long time. Then she added them to the Foundation's archives, not to excuse Patricia's behavior, but to understand it, to show future generations how abuse cycles perpetuate, how victims become abusers when they don't get help, how breaking those cycles requires courage, compassion, and the willingness to see people as both victims and perpetrators of harm. Patricia Carter's story was many things: a tragedy, a warning, a catalyst for change, but most importantly, it was a reminder that hurt people, and healed people heal people. Emily had chosen healing. She'd chosen to break the cycle instead of perpetuating it. And in doing so, she'd created a legacy far more powerful than Patricia's legacy of pain. The final chapter would prove that sometimes the best revenge is living well, loving freely, and ensuring that your enemy's cruelty becomes the foundation for someone else's liberation.
10 years later, Hope Carter stood at the podium of the Texas state capitol. At 28, she'd just been appointed to the newly created position of Family Justice Advocate, a state-level position dedicated to reforming family court systems and preventing grandparent abuse. Her journey from the daughter who'd never met her grandmother to a state official had been remarkable. She'd earned her doctorate in clinical psychology, specializing in family systems and intergenerational trauma. She'd published research papers that changed how courts evaluated grandparent custody petitions. She'd testified before Congress about elder abuse in family systems, and now she stood before the Texas legislature to announce sweeping reforms to family law. The Patricia Carter Protection Act, Hope began, her voice strong and clear, is named after my grandmother, not to honor her, but to ensure no one else suffers what she inflicted on my mother. The chamber was packed,
Emily and Michael sat in the front row, hands clasped, watching their daughter change the world. This act requires several critical changes to Texas family law. First, any grandparent seeking custody or guardianship must undergo mandatory psychological evaluation by 3 independent clinicians, no more relying on friends in high places. Second, all daughters-in-law and sons-in-law involved in grandparent custody disputes must be provided free legal representation, leveling the playing field between wealthy grandparents and struggling young families. Third, any evidence of abuse, physical, psychological, or emotional, automatically disqualifies a grandparent from custody or visitation rights. Fourth, family courts must consider the pattern of behavior, not just isolated incidents. Systematic manipulation and control will be recognized as abuse. And finally, any professional who falsifies medical or psychiatric evaluations to aid in fraudulent custody cases will lose their license and face criminal prosecution. The legislature erupted in applause. Hope continued. My grandmother destroyed multiple families before mine. She was part of a network that operated for decades, using wealth and influence to control their adult children's lives. This stops now, in Texas and soon across the nation. After the speech, reporters swarmed Hope with questions. How do you feel about naming legislation after your grandmother who abused your mother? I feel like I'm taking back her narrative. She wanted to control our family. Instead, her name will forever be associated with protecting families from people like her. That's poetic justice. Do you think your grandmother would be proud of what you've accomplished? Hope paused, considering. The young woman who dreamed of being a doctor and helping people? Yes, I think she would be proud. The bitter woman who tried to destroy my family? No, she'd be furious. But I'm not living for her approval. I'm living to prevent her mistakes from being repeated. That evening, the Carter family gathered at home for a private celebration. Emily's parents had flown in from Oregon. Michael's executive team from Carter Industries had sent congratulatory flowers. Supporters from the foundation had organized a surprise party. But the most meaningful moment came later, when it was just Emily, Michael, and Hope sitting in the backyard by Patricia's memorial tree. The Japanese maple had grown tall and beautiful over the years, its branches carefully pruned, its leaves brilliant red in the autumn sun. I've been thinking about Grandmother Patricia a lot lately, preparing for the legislation, reading old case files, watching the security footage of you abusing me, Mom. Emily tensed slightly. That must have been hard. It was, but it was also clarifying. Hope looked at her parents. I spent my whole life knowing she was the villain in our family story, but seeing those videos, I realized she was also incredibly sad, lost, desperately grasping for control because everything else in her life had been controlled by others. That doesn't excuse what she did, Michael said firmly. No, but it explains why prevention is so important. If Richard hadn't abused Patricia, if she'd gotten therapy instead of transferring her pain onto you, if someone had intervened before she spiraled, Hope trailed off. So many ifs, so many missed opportunities to break the cycle. You're breaking it now, Emily said. Your legislation will save thousands of families. Our legislation, Hope corrected. You and Dad built the foundation that proved these patterns exist. You gathered the data, you helped the victims, you created the evidence base that made this law possible. I'm just the one giving the speeches. Michael pulled both women into a hug. We did it together, as a family, the way family is supposed to work. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the maple tree's leaves rustle in the breeze. Do you think she's watching us somehow, Grandmother Patricia? I don't know, Emily admitted. I'm not sure I believe in an afterlife, But if she is watching, I hope she's finally at peace. I hope she understands that the cycle of pain ended with her, that we refuse to pass it forward. I've been writing a book, Hope announced, about families and control and intergenerational trauma, about how victims become abusers, about how to break those cycles. What are you calling it? Michael asked. The Patricia Paradox, How to Love Without Controlling. Hope smiled. She gets one last chance to teach the world something, this time what not to do. Will you include her letters? Emily asked. With your permission, I think people need to see that she wasn't born a monster. She became one through a series of choices and wounds, and that means anyone can become like her if they're not careful, but it also means anyone can choose differently. Emily thought about the young woman in the college photo, the bright-eyed pre-med student full of dreams, the woman who was crushed by a controlling husband and emerged as a controlling mother. Yes, Emily decided, include everything, the abuse, the letters, the regrets. Let it be a complete picture, not to villainize her, but to understand her and to prevent others from following her path. Over the next year, Hope's book became a bestseller. The Patricia Paradox was required reading in family therapy programs across the country. It sparked conversations about elder behavior, grandparent boundaries, and intergenerational trauma. Patricia Carter, who died alone and unmourned in prison, became famous not for her cruelty, but as a cautionary tale about what happens when love curdles into control. The Emily Carter Foundation expanded nationally, then internationally. They opened offices in 12 countries, helping families escape controlling grandparents across cultures. They helped a woman in India whose mother-in-law had tried to force her into seclusion after her husband's death. They helped a man in Argentina whose father was trying to take custody of his children because he'd married outside his race. They helped a couple in Japan whose grandmother was using cultural tradition to justify abuse. The patterns were universal. The solutions were becoming universal too. On what would have been Patricia's 90th birthday, the foundation held a special ceremony. They planted 90 trees, one for each year of her life, in a memorial garden dedicated to grandmothers who lost their way. Each tree bore a plaque with a different lesson: love without possession, pride without control, family without ownership, sacrifice without resentment, strength without domination. The ceremony was attended by over 300 people, all survivors of grandparent abuse or family members of survivors. Emily spoke at the ceremony.
Patricia Carter would have been 90 today. She might have been a great-grandmother by now. She might have watched Hope grow up, watched her succeed, maybe even been proud of the legislation bearing her name. Emily paused, looking at the crowd. But she made different choices. She chose control over connection. She chose pride over love. She chose her own hurt feelings over her son's happiness, and those choices cost her everything. We plant these trees not to honor her, but to remember the lesson she taught us through her mistakes, that being a grandparent is a privilege, not a right, that loving our children means letting them grow beyond us, that our wounds are our responsibility to heal, not our children's burden to bear. Hope stood beside her mother, adding her own words. My grandmother tried to destroy my family. Instead, she gave us purpose. She showed us what love looks like when it's twisted by pain and control, and by showing us that, she taught us to love better, to love freely, to love without strings attached. Hope gestured to the crowd. Everyone here has survived what my mother survived. You've all faced grandparents or in-laws who confused control with care, and you've all chosen to break that cycle instead of perpetuating it. So these trees aren't really for my grandmother. They're for all of you, for all of us,
a living reminder that we can grow beyond our pain. We can be pruned by difficulty and emerge more beautiful. We can choose differently than those who hurt us. As the ceremony ended and people mingled among the new trees, Emily found herself standing alone in front of the tree dedicated to Patricia specifically. Its plaque read simply, Patricia Carter, 1935-2020. She taught us what not to be. Michael joined her, slipping his hand into hers. Do you ever wish things had been different? That she'd been the grandmother Hope deserved? Every day, Emily admitted. I wish Hope knew the version of Patricia from that college photo. I wish you hadn't lost your mother. I wish your father hadn't abused her and set her on this path. But wishing doesn't change reality. Patricia made her choices, we made ours, and our choices, to fight back, to build the foundation, to help others, those choices matter more than her attempts to destroy us. Emily touched the tree's trunk. She spent years trying to make me feel small, insignificant, unworthy, and in the end, my refusal to become small became bigger than her cruelty. The foundation has helped thousands of families. Hope's legislation will help thousands more. We turned her weapon into our shield, and her cruelty into our compassion. She lost, Michael said simply. No, Emily corrected. She didn't lose. Losing implies there was a competition. She destroyed herself. We just refused to be destroyed with her. That night, as they drove home, Hope asked a question that was clearly on her mind. Mom, Dad, what do you want your legacy to be? Not the foundation, not the legislation, but you, personally. What do you want people to remember about how you lived? Emily and Michael exchanged glances, a conversation passing between them in that look. I want people to remember, Emily said slowly, that I was abused by my mother-in-law, and I refused to let that abuse define me. That I turned pain into purpose, that I chose to help others instead of becoming bitter. And I want people to remember that I chose love over loyalty, that when I had to decide between my mother and my wife, I chose the person who loved me without trying to own me. That family isn't about blood, it's about who builds you up instead of tearing you down. Good, Hope said softly, because that's how I already see you. Not as victims of Grandmother Patricia's cruelty, not even as survivors, but as people who transformed pain into power, who refused to pass on the hurt they received. Emily turned in her seat to look at her daughter. And what do you want your legacy to be? Hope thought for a moment. I want to be remembered as the granddaughter who never knew her grandmother, but spent her life making sure other grandchildren never had to fear theirs. I want to be the woman who took a family tragedy and turned it into a national movement. I want people to say, Hope Carter changed how we think about family loyalty and control. You're already doing that, Michael said with pride. We're already doing that, Hope corrected. This is our legacy, all of us, built on Grandmother Patricia's attempt to destroy us. As they pulled into their driveway, Emily looked up at the house where she'd once been abused and trapped, the house Patricia had tried to turn into Emily's prison. Now it was a home filled with love, laughter, and freedom. Hope's college friends sometimes stayed over. Emily's parents visited regularly. Michael's business partners came for dinner parties where everyone was welcomed warmly. Patricia had tried to make this house a place of control and fear. Instead, it had become a sanctuary of choice and love. That was the real victory. Not that Patricia had been punished, not that she died alone in prison, not even that her name was now attached to legislation protecting families from abusive grandparents. The real victory was that Emily, Michael, and Hope had built a life so full of genuine love that Patricia's twisted version of love looked pathetic.
People whose lives had been changed by the Foundation's work. Emily, now 65, stood at the podium one last time before retiring from active leadership of the foundation. 30 years ago, Patricia Carter died in prison, alone and full of regrets. She spent her last years understanding, finally, that control is not love, that possession is not family, that hurting those you claim to love is the ultimate betrayal. Emily looked out at the massive crowd. But her death wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning of ours. Every family here represents a life saved, a child not stolen, a mother not wrongfully committed, a cycle broken. Patricia Carter tried to destroy me. Instead, she gave me a mission. She tried to steal my daughter. Instead, she gave hope a purpose. She tried to break our family. Instead, she showed us how strong we were. Emily paused, her voice thick with emotion. So I stand before you today, 30 years after her death, not to forgive her, not to excuse her, but to declare that her cruelty failed. Love won. Freedom won. Family, real family, built on choice and respect, won. And for every grandmother out there who thinks she knows better than her adult children, who thinks she has the right to control how her grandchildren are raised, who thinks love means ownership, I have one message. You don't. Your time of control is over. The Patricia Carter Protection Act ensures that. Your adult children are not your property. Your grandchildren are not your do-overs. And if you try to hurt them the way Patricia hurt us, we will stop you. The crowd rose in a standing ovation, thousands of voices cheering the end of an era of unchecked grandparent power and the dawn of families freed from toxic control. As Emily stepped down from the podium for the last time, Hope and Michael met her with tears of pride. You did it, Mom! You didn't just survive Patricia, you made sure thousands of other families survived their Patricias too. We did it, Emily corrected. All of us, together, as a family. The way family is supposed to work. And in that moment, standing between her husband and her daughter, surrounded by thousands of families freed from the cycle of control, Emily felt something she hadn't in 30 decades. Complete peace. Patricia Carter was finally, truly, nothing more than a memory, a lesson learned, a chapter closed. The rest of Emily's story, their story, would be written not by what had been done to them, but what they had done with it. And that was the greatest victory of all.
Sometimes the worst things that happen to us become the catalyst for the best things we do. Patricia Carter's cruelty sparked a movement that freed thousands of families from similar abuse. Her attempt to steal a child led to legislation protecting children nationwide. Her death in prison marked not an ending, but a beginning, the birth of a legacy far greater than she could have imagined. Not a legacy of her creating, but of those she tried to destroy. Because in the end, we are not defined by what is done to us, but by what we choose to do next. Emily, Michael, and Hope Carter chose healing, justice, and love. And in making that choice, they ensured that Patricia's name would forever be remembered, not for the pain she caused, but for the movement that rose to stop others like her. That is the truest form of justice, when those who survive refuse to merely exist in the shadow of their pain, but instead build monuments to hope,
on the very ground where cruelty tried to plant its seeds.